This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. I feel like one of those blow up, like Valvoline instant oil change. I wouldn't even call those things. I feel like that whenever the C2C at night intro music kicks in. Welcome in, though, folks, to another live edition of C2C at night on a Monday evening, March 24th, 2025. Taking a break from our March Madness coverage to bring you the late night sports talk show of record that does sports talk the way it should be done on this Monday night, alongside that man, James Gonzales, from up in Oceanside, California. Yours truly, Cal McClurg, in studio here in San Diego. Mr. Gonzales, kind of in a way, breaking off from March Madness talk. We've had two very great shows that we had, though, for Madness tonight. Again, we will have more about March Madness later on the show, though. But, James, not really a grand circle tour of the sports world today, but still, though, a lot of great topics on the table. Big game, James. Good to see you, my friend. How's it going tonight?
Yeah, work sucks. I know.
But did she leave you roses by the stairs?
I was hoping you get that. And I still can't remember what those things are called, but you would see them all the time.
I don't know either, but I feel that way whenever whenever the intro music hits for this program. I don't know why.
What was I going to say? I'll tell you what. I watched, I think, other from the first games, I think I watched every other March Madness game. I am like so happy with the mental break of that. I feel like all I've seen is just basketballs bouncing and clanking off the side of the rim.
Basketball, gimme the ball, cause I'm gonna dunk it.
And then the is in my head still. I need like one more day.
Agree that we are sadly tired of the little piggy flying weaving.
I like that. I'm the only one, I guess, but I hope they do it by rounds or by weekends, where they have an old Geico commercial like the Chipmunks causing the car accident and
Woodchucks Chuck Wood.
I hope they bring it like.
Can football announcer Andres Cantor make any sports unexciting? Go!
Oh yeah, I remember that one. But man, I'm having a withdrawal. Like, I probably even watch any like NBA the next couple of days. I'm just gonna get ready for the Thursday action.
Watch some soccer. Watch some hockey. The last
I think I'll do hockey. The Angels beat the Dodgers somehow on a walk-off, I heard. Like, that never happens. But yeah, I think I'm gonna get into some hockey. Hopefully, there's some good matchups when I get home tomorrow night or something.
And Alex Ovechkin still chasing 7 away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time scoring record. But, of course, folks, with that in mind, again, this is C2C at 9. Again, James and I are taking a break from our Madness Tonight programs. Again, a big thank you, by the way, again, to those who tuned in over the first 2 days of our March Madness coverage. We had a blast doing it. I mean, we were going to come back yesterday, but I was very tired from being up early on Saturday. Got to watch my nephew play his second ever T-ball game. Then I, of course, went with my good man Christian Enciso to the San Diego Wave home opener against the Utah Royals at Snapdragon Stadium, which explains the jersey, which, of course, has my favorite player of all time and Shannon McMillan's name on the back. That I've had a great working relationship with Shannon Mack in her time with Sockers, the Loyal, the Wave now. And we're getting big game James out to the next match on April 12th against Kansas City, so that'll be very fun. But, of course, folks, here on C2C at night, again, James and I recap the day that was, and for that matter, the weekend that was, in across the sports world here. So again, we're going a lot of different directions tonight. But again, if you're joining us here late on this Monday night, again, questions, comments, concerns, hit up our live chat box, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, or via Twitch. We'll do our absolute best to ensure that your commentary, like always, is read live on the air here this evening. Of course, James, we lost another great man over the course of the weekend that we kind of talked about a little bit in passing on our last Madness Tonight program at the very end of our coverage, again, which was the news, though, of Big George Foreman, James, a man with a heart of gold who sadly passed away at the age of 76 just a couple days ago. Of course, George James, a two-time world heavyweight champ of the world in professional boxing. How about 81 total fights, James, in his career? And George went 76-5-0 with 68 wins by way of knockout. He, of course, also won the 1968 gold medal in the heavyweight division in the Mexico City Olympics. And, of course, James, I think Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on his podcast on Monday really told a lot of great stories about George Foreman. Again, George was a troubled kid in Houston who took up boxing to get himself off the streets and get himself on a better path for life, of course. Wins a gold medal, of course, has the Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali. And I think a viewer actually wrote in about how Muhammad Ali and George became great friends after that fight, where, again, in the heat of battle, again, you're trying to go out there and, what George said, kill the other opponent, and that was, of course, a very big feather in his cap for what he had done in boxing. Of course, he became a born again. He was born again, basically, coming back and working as a Christian minister. And he came back as well at the age of 45. When I was born in 94, and he also won and unified the WBA, IBF, and the lineal heavyweight championship titles by knocking out 26-year-old fighter Michael Moore. He then dropped the WBA belt rather than face the mandatory title defense soon after. And following a single successful title fight, he relinquished his IBF title as well in June of 95. George, at 46 years old, at 46 years and 169 days old, was the oldest world heavyweight champion in all of boxing history and the oldest fighter to ever win the World Heavyweight Championship of major honors, and the second oldest fighter to do so in any weight class behind light heavyweight champion great Bernard Hopkins. George retired officially in 97 at the age of 48 years old, again going 76-5 with 68 knockouts in his career. And of course, as we talk more, I think, about George after he finished off his fight career, though, with his work, though, as a minister. His work, though, of course, with the As Seen on TV George Foreman grill that everyone probably has had or still has somewhere in the kitchen somewhere, but also about how George also stayed involved with boxing, James, and became one of the voices of the new era and age of heavyweight fights on ABC or on HBO, of course, with San Diego's own Jim Lampley and, of course, boxing legend Larry Merchant. And, of course, James, we talked a bit about George's passing on Friday, but maybe again, James, how do you remember George Foreman in the wake of his passing this past Friday? About the man, gold medal winner, two-time world champ, his fight with Muhammad Ali, or the grill, the King of the Hill episodes, or how, again, though, James, will you remember George Foreman in wake of his passing this past Friday?
Yeah, a lot of it we talked about, of course. I think a while back I only knew him from the broadcasting aspect of what you mentioned. He would always do those HBO fights with Lampley and just be a strong voice, I think, for the sport when it was strong. The grills he would sell, I mean, those things were just huge. And I think for someone who has one, I think it's still pretty good for them. Like I say, I got one over there. Also, his record is really, really good. Obviously, a Hall of Famer. Part of the two biggest, most memorable name fights of all time, you would think. Was it Thriller in Manila and
Rumble in the Jungle?
Rumble in the Jungle, yeah, thank you. Those two that speared Howard Cosell to say, "Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier."
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
And I didn't even realize it was George knocking out Frazier. I didn't even realize that. So that's just crazy to me, just to think about that, because I've heard that so many times, but I never really actually realized it was him. But his how many kids you said he had? 7 kids or
I think he
12?
had 12 kids.
12 kids. Yeah, 12 kids. So the legacy will always be there. The names will always be there, and just a great man who made something out of his life when it could have been something else. I also heard today from Hacksaw that I think he was a protege of Sonny Liston. He also went down the right path. After going down the wrong path, took up fighting and went on from there, and maybe would have been as big. Liston would have been as big as Ali, but he kept losing to Ali. But Foreman kind of took the reins of being, the next one after Ali, and in between Frazier and all the big name fighters from back then, at least all the heavyweight fighters I heard today, and a lot of the names I heard of, but a lot of them don't really stand up to Foreman, Ali, and Frazier. Those are just names that make you realize how great the sport was. So for someone older, it probably really hits them harder, this death of George Foreman.
Yeah, I think, James, you're right, though, that, you and I grew up, though, when George was maybe at the back end of his career, again, fighting until he was 48 years old, again, winning multiple championships. And, again, that record, though, just speaks volumes again. Losing 5 times in his whole career is just mind-boggling to think it was only 5 losses, and I know, James, that a lot of times a lot of boxers that I follow on the web and I, kind of keep up with, like the modern day fighters, they take that first loss very, very hard because they expect to go out there, and be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and that first time that they lose, you kind of feel like, and you kind of see them like a bit dejected when that first happens. So, but then they kind of snap out of it and stuff like that. But again, George only lost 5 times his whole career. But I think, though, that you're right, though, about George getting his life back on track, though. Like you said about, Sonny Liston, who, again, I know that we only remember him, though, in lore of being knocked out early by Ali to win the World Heavyweight Championship in the mid-'60s when they kind of began reaching the apex of heavyweight fighting in that time. But at the end of the day, though, I think, James, that, we probably remember George mainly more for HBO boxing. Again, him, Lampley, and Merchant, again, that 3, the 3 horsemen that were calling fights, like in the prime of heavyweight fighting, again, like Tyson Holyfield, Galata, and Bo. Again, we talked about that a little bit in passing on Friday when we got the news. But, of course, that, George Foreman, though, a lot like, I'd say, James, and this might be a weird comparison, but George Foreman, much like a Magic Johnson, a athlete who saw a chance to keep himself relevant and then make money and invest his money in new avenues. And, of course, James, that goes to the ever-popular George Foreman grill. I mean, look at, that's kind of like what I think about George Foreman is about the grill. He was in that King of the Hill episode where, again, Hank Hill's daughter is fighting his daughter, in a boxing match and stuff. And he did, the full cameo. He kept trying to sell the grill to Hank, even before, the fight. And then after the fight was over, you want to buy a grill? You want to buy a grill? And I think he even made like a self-deprecating joke during that episode. Like, if I didn't take so many shots to the head, maybe it could have named my kid something other than George, or something along that line. Like, so even that kind of humor, but also like we said, though, in passing on Friday, how George got really defensive of during the Riddick Bowe Andrew Galata fight the second time around, where Larry Merchant kept claiming George, he ain't hitting him low, it's just part of the game. He just didn't, and George basically said, watch the replay, over and over and over. He's hitting him below the belt layer. You can't tell me that is not intentional. And of course, I think we also talked, James, in passing on Friday about the first fight where, again, the massive melee breaks out. George was basically protecting Merchant and Lampley, by, grabbing people by the shirts and pulling them down off the apron of the ring, telling people, don't do that. Don't do that, son. No, don't do that, son. Don't do that. What are you going to accomplish going in there, with these 2, heavyweights in there? So I think that I mainly remember George Foreman being like a voice I recall hearing, on HBO. And I think at one point that when George left the booth, I think that they had Floyd Mayweather Sr. step into his shoes, I think, at one point in time, like late 90s, early 2000s. But again, all the best going, though, folks, to George Foreman and his family again. Big George sadly passed away on Friday at the age of 76 after a great life lived and a great career as well. James, we're going to kind of, in a way, call an audible here. Omaha, on two, ready, break. We're going to talk some football, and I mean the actual proper version of football, a la me with the SDFC flag up in the corner, and of course me wearing my brand new Wave FC kit.
I have a coaster.
But James, over the weekend though, the U.S. men's national team was in action at SoFi Stadium for what was a kind of a tune-up tournament, basically, and kind of in a way like the first true showing of Team USA men's soccer for the upcoming World Cup. This was like a four-nation tune-up tournament at SoFi Stadium, and Team USA, James, was humbled and embarrassed on their home soil by both Panama and Canada. And per Sports Illustrated and per SI's Carl Rasmussen, written on Sunday, Team USA's men's national team vowed to bounce back after their loss on Thursday to Panama in the CONCACAF Nations League on Thursday. They did not respond as they intend to do so. Team USA was once again outclassed during the third-place match versus Canada, failing to register more than one shot on goal throughout the first 84 minutes, and they lost 2-1 to go 0 for 2 in the tournament. The uninspired performance did not sit well with fans, including former U.S. men's national team captain and former six-time MLS Cup champion Landon Donovan, who has become very much opinionated since he retired from pro soccer and went on to social media to blast Team USA with his message from a team in which he did not mince his words while expressing his disappointment. Here is what Donovan wrote on X after Sunday's loss. Quote, "I am so sick of hearing how talented this group of players is in all the amazing clubs they play for. If you aren't going to show up and actually give a bleep about playing for the national team, decline the invite. Talent is great. Pride is better." Open and close quote. Now, again, the World Cup, James, is coming up on home soil in North America next year, and the team looks like a far cry from the squad fans were hoping to see at the stage. And Donovan made clear that the current level is unacceptable, despite a slew of talented players on the roster that play for clubs overseas. Team of coach Mauricio Pochettino's team has failed to put its best foot forward, as evidenced by their consecutive losses to both Panama, who they have difficulty playing with, and also against Canada. If Coach Pochettino cannot give his team inspired to perform at the required level, perhaps some harsh criticism from Donovan will serve as a much-needed wake-up call for what is a lifeless squad. That also, James, went to Clint Dempsey, also a former U.S. men's national team player, who really showed his frustration on CBS Sports Golazo Network before the gold medal game was played on Sunday. But Clint had to be calmed down by the rest of his panel because he was getting very upset. James, this is what I think, and I think, though, that people can view what Landon said as being whatever they want to, whatever it is. Now, I will agree, though, that Landon has become very much outspoken and very much critical of USA Soccer ever since he retired from playing with the Galaxy in San Jose and his stints here coaching San Diego Loyal and the Wave. I have known Landon for a couple of years. He, of course, played for the Sockers as a one-off a couple years ago, and I got to announce Landon Donovan scoring a goal, so that's a very cool feather in the cap. But Landon has really become, I think, James, very much outspoken, along with Carly Lloyd, again, that she got a lot of flack and negative pub for how she was critical of her Team USA women's teammates with their performance in the last World Cup. Now, James, here we have Landon and Clint Dempsey, two of who I think are two of the biggest faces of U.S. men's soccer, who I think that, we could say that they're probably, grumpy old men because now it's like the new kids are kind of spoiled with, where money is now to play overseas. But I also think, James, do think, though, there is, that there is a sense of pride. I remember James saying this when we talked about the Four Nations face-off in hockey, that when you put that jersey on, like I have mine on tonight, and if it says Team USA on it, there's a different level you go to when you're representing the red, white, and blue and the 50 stars on the flag. There's a different level that you go to when you're wearing the Canadian maple leaf, or you're wearing the eagle on the cactus with the snake in its mouth for Team Mexico. There's much more pride that should be on the line and that you should put your best foot forth because you have an entire country putting their faith and trust into you to play your best. And James, these two matches, though, that I caught highlights of, they looked lackadaisical, uninspired. They look flat, lifeless, and they look boring. And again, they've had problems playing Panama both here and down in Panama. And then the game against Canada, it was lifeless. I don't care if it's a third place game or you're playing for last place, you're playing for the title or the bronze medal. You should take every game that you're playing seriously when you are in fact wearing that logo that has USA on the front, or you have the eagle and the snake on the front of the Mexican Aztec inspired jersey. That there's a different level you have to go to. And I think, James, that both Landon and Clint are so right that I don't care if it's a tune-up tournament. This is already setting, James, what feels like to be a bad example. And that we're already kind of getting, the wheels are in motion for next summer when the World Cup comes to the States, to Canada, and to Mexico. This is already a bad foot start, and I know that coach, that Mauricio can get these guys back in gear. The players have to buy in, though, James. And I think that Landon is so right, though. Like I've said, you can put the jersey on, but if you're not going to play to your full potential, then decline the invite and go back to playing for your club in MLS or overseas. So, James, in your opinion, though, again, kind of in a way, and I hate to say it, though, but yourself, though, kind of, outsider for soccer, but knowing, though, about international pride being on the line, though, over the weekend, and Team USA goes 0-2 barbecue. See you later. 1 goal in 2 matches against Panama, and then losing, of course, as well to Canada for the bronze medal. Knowing, James, that we're so close now to the World Cup coming to Canada, the U.S., and Mexico next year, is Landon Donovan's criticism, James, of Team USA's performance fair or foul in your mind?
It just feels like I've heard this before with Team USA men's soccer. It feels like I've heard the criticism before. Maybe with Alexa Lawless, I think it was, maybe back in the day. But I swore I've heard this before, and with USA Soccer not performing up to where it should be, the standard should be where everybody else is. And it seems to me, not only is there a generational gap where, how we have an NBA, we had former players criticizing the new game and how the players are going about it now and make more money. It just feels like it's the same thing, but it's country. Like you mentioned, it's USA. It means more. And that's what hurts. And then you have Donovan, who's a generation before, saying, this isn't the way to do it. This isn't the way USA is supposed to be. Don't even show up. I read something. I'm guessing Taylor Twellman was a former player as well.
Yes.
Okay. So I found a tweet where he says, thankfully, there are 48 teams and automatic qualification for the 2026 World Cup, because I'm not sure this U.S. men's team would qualify in the old format. Then he mentions how many of the other players have to play well to further their career, both in earnings and club stature. Do they have to play well? I don't know what he says after that, but I'm guessing it's all about just pride. And then after, like you mentioned, they can go get money elsewhere. Do they have to play well for the men's to improve their club on a daily basis? So he's thinking about the daily issues that might be coming up. I really like what Landon Donovan is mentioning too. I wish there was more players like this. And like I said, I think Lawless said this before, but we always heard about how talented the groups are. The U.S.
Especially this team that we have seen now, again, with Christian Pulisic, with guys like him and Tim Wee, some of these young budding stars who are, they're playing great overseas, but why can't you translate that game now to wearing it for the red, white, and blue?
And losing to Panama and Canada, those aren't like I'm guessing not the upper tier, countries that you don't want to be losing to. I'm trying to think, is that like losing maybe how would I think that if you
The Bulls blowing out the Lakers on Sunday, yeah, that'd be fair.
maybe that's it. Where you're supposed to, just because of your record and your stature, you're supposed to beat them, and that's always bad. But on a national scale, the only thing is too, I was thinking about while you were talking about everything, is that I think this is the only sport that a USA national team gets criticized in, or maybe the most.
Agreed.
I'm thinking about the
100%.
Olympics, where the men and the women they take care of business, right? You never really hear about the track stars because it's like an individual sport, right? Nobody really complained when Usain Bolt was doing his thing, but you have the newer women running track who just run everything, so that's fine. But when it comes to soccer, it always seems like USA is still behind everyone else, or not everyone else, but behind where they should be. And I believe, didn't they change coaches last year too?
Yeah, Greg Berhalter is now coaching the Chicago Fire in MLS.
And then the new man is the cool last name.
Mauricio Pochettino.
That's an awesome name. So they had to go get him, I'm guessing, from Europe.
Overseas, and pay him an exuberant amount of cachet to coach this team.
And thinking that would work, but the USA players, you could say, maybe are spoiled enough to say, hey, well, we don't have to. This isn't making us money, at least too much. What we're doing at other places is making us money. I couldn't imagine like the dream team of 92 coming together and just being lackadaisical. That's going to happen in the next generation of USA basketball, but not now, because you saw those vets come in and just run everything like Curry and LeBron. I'll tell you, I'll end my statements, but the team as it is now, the USA team, the men's team, is it mostly young players? Do they have a lot of veterans on the team? I'm wondering, is it a leadership issue as well?
I think they just have like multiple problems, and Team USA can't afford to keep sacking managers. That's the soccer lingo for firing the head coach, is sacking the manager. I hear that all the time in European soccer, the EPL, and that it's not the leadership. I think it's the makeup of the roster, and I also think, James, that you're so right though, that there is not a gap, I'd say, but there's definitely problems within U.S. soccer. And when I say that, James, I think Landon has spoken about this. I've heard Twellman talk about this. Alexi Lawless talk about this. Carly Lloyd talk about this. Tim Howard talk about this.
That's it.
It's the American soccer model as a whole is broken. Charging families and charging kids, exuberant amount of money to play for a club team is what they believe has killed, is hurting American soccer, where that's where I think that SDFC, James, staying within the soccer ecosystem, their ownership group literally has a thing called the Right to Dream Academy, which is a big thing in MLS where teams, start academies like LA Galaxy, like the LA Junior Galaxy, like the Junior LAFC, the San Jose Junior Earthquakes. But San Diego is a part of a global network within the Right to Dream Academy, which is in San Diego, Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark in general. They're all over, like Ghana. And all they do is they bring kids in to go to school and play soccer. And they go and play for their teams, in Europe or in Denmark or in, I think they have they have an academy in Ghana. And now they have a new academy out here in San Diego at SDFC's training facility, that they have classrooms, dormitories. And then they all come here and they go to class and then they go and play soccer. So that I've heard a lot, though, about the blame being on the American soccer model as a whole, of charging the families so much money to play for a club team, where maybe you have a budding star who can't afford to make the practices or can't afford to make the fees to cover for a tournament, for example, or this or that. But also, James, I kind of want to get more of your thoughts, though, and I think that we may have talked about this a little bit, though, that you brought up, though, a little bit about like TNT and the NBA coverage. Do you have an issue with with people like Donovan, Tim Howard, Carly Lloyd, kind of, players who played for Team USA who probably don't want to ruffle feathers, but choose to ruffle feathers on TV, that their criticism of Team USA should not result in them being attacked for giving their thoughts? I know that Carly Lloyd, James, was absolutely pummeled by the American soccer fan base for her commentary about when Team USA, the women, did not get out of the group stage round or barely got through the most recent World Cup, though. So in that aspect, James, is any criticism that is warranted from Twellman, Lawless, Donovan, Howard, or Lloyd, is that in your mind fair or foul for them to actually go after USA Soccer, in your opinion, with them being former players of the federation at one point in time?
Yeah, two points real quick. It was Tim Howard. I remember the last time I heard criticism of the U.S. men's team, it was from him. And then I think it's fair, or the other thing too, real quick, you mentioned how parents are being charged up the rear for these little league games or whatever. That's happening now for these travel ball little league teams or whatever age teams. Idiotic crap where you pay for parking, pay for entry fee to the park or to the ball fields. That's quickly going to generate, hate about that. It just seems horrible, and how much travel ball, how much that has to be costs to go around the country.
You're talking in your case, who played travel baseball forever, and I played overseas too for a couple of months out of the year for 3 consecutive years. That's, I played in Vegas, I played in New York, I played in Arizona, I played in Orange County, I played in LA County, I played in Japan, I played in NorCal, I played in Mexico, I played in Italy, like all over the world, basically. I got to broadcast in Australia. That adds up after a while. But again, James, back to your thoughts, though. Former players of Team USA for soccer criticizing USA Soccer, fair or foul?
Would you imagine how much your trips would be now?
I don't even want to think about it, my friend. I know it's way more than whatever's in my bank account right now at 11:02 in the evening.
I think it's fair, though, the criticisms. I know it's different. I think it's different just based on this. The TNT guys to the NBA players now, that's just in the league. Okay? This is about country. It's about pride. It's about, winning the cup or whatever. It's more than just a regular league that you play for. This is about, like you mentioned, the shield you wear on your knit. It's just that. It's not. It means more. And I actually want to see you mentioned the one guy that had to be kind of held back on set, or
Clint
what he
Dempsey.
was saying. If you could send that, or I'll look it up. But I actually want to see that, because you could just tell. I think a lot of people have those opinions, but it's necessarily never done on camera. For the sports leagues, the only time you see it is in, like, for Olympics, for country pride,
World Cup,
so
Gold Cup.
That's why I think it's more important, and it means more, and that's why I don't have a problem with it. I totally get it. I'd rather have people interested and caring about it than saying, oh, whatever, we'll just continue to be who we are. They don't have to carry on the pride and the winning like we did. I never want to hear that ever when it comes to new generations of a game, especially for the global game like soccer, like football. You don't want somebody just to say, okay, whatever. You want to, again, USA, they've been trying to get out of, it feels like, the basement of never reaching, getting upstairs and getting back maybe up to the top. You just never have that. And so I love that the former players are getting at the young ones, saying, this is how it's supposed to be, or don't even show up. But it's just entitlement. It feels like to the newer
Bingo.
players. That's what
I was just going to get to that, James, real quick before we get to my some more thoughts here. Christy Wilson says hello, guys, and also a what's up as well to our good man Gabe Jackson. If it's actually Gabe Jackson, if not, we might know who's pulling strings on that account, but we'll see what happens. But more importantly, though, James, and I'm so glad you brought up, though, about the E word, entitlement. James, I always think back, and partially why I have, the jersey I have on and why the player name on the back of it means a lot to me, with it being Shannon McMillan. That was the team that got me into soccer in 1999. I know that even you probably, James,
I watched that.
We were captivated by the 99 Women's World Cup. It was in the States. They, of course, James, and I don't know if the documentary is on ESPN Plus anymore, but they did like a reunion of sorts of Julie Foudy, Brandy Chastain, Christine Lilly, Carla Overbeck, Mia Hamm, and Brianna Scurry, like 6 of the biggest names of women's soccer at that time. They gathered at the Rose Bowl, and they did like a retrospective of that World Cup. And I remember that Julie and them were talking about, do you know that, she said, do you remember, though, when we were talking about, like, bidding for the World Cup, and we thought, let's just keep it on the East Coast and just play in college stadiums? But yet, though, James, we all got captivated, though, when they were playing at Giant Stadium, Stanford Stadium, the Rose Bowl, all the NFL stadiums, that they were sold out for a women's sporting event at that time. And that team laid the foundation for what I thought was going to be USA Soccer finally getting elevated. Now, I know that the women had the 91 World Cup victory, the 95 World Cup victory, and then, of course, in 99, they had the victory there. They went 91. I think it was 91, 99, and then it was the one that they won fairly recently in 2012, I believe, or what have you. But regardless, 99 felt like it was the foundation. Then Team USA's men in 2002, I believe, turns the corner, and I think they get to the round of 16, and then they get knocked out. They, of course, have the infamous 2-0 victory over Mexico in the World Cup that year. And then so it was like 99, 2002, 2011 with the women, 2012, and then their retribution in 2015. But that the men have just never gotten there, James. But I damn sure agree with you, though, that it's the entitlement factor now that, Clint and Landon, Taylor, Alexi, Shannon, and Julie, they all, in a way, and we always hear them, James, being like the torchbearers or like laying the foundation for the next generation. Now, James, here is where the new generation's at now. 2 pathetic, disgraceful losses on home soil to Panama and also Canada. And again, just lackluster play, where I understand, James, and I get, though, and I agree with you, though, that the criticism from the former players is so perfect, because in a way they're like, look, we have paved the way for you to get where you are today. This is how you reward us for what we did, with the women in 99, what they've done with their 4 championships with the World Cup and the gold medal this past year. This is the thanks that we as former players get for laying the foundation for a bunch of entitled players nowadays with where soccer has gone. And I think, James, that's all I can really say, though, is that you're so right that I see the frustration, because it's like they're like, in a way, it's like a, halftime speech. What are we doing here, basically? Like, that's where I think, James, that we're at right now, is that it's more, I think it's not necessarily about like the frustration factor concerning how they play, James. I think it's just more of like, fellas, think to where we were at one point when we were in your shoes. People weren't really on or really invested in soccer. Look where we are now. Like, that's kind of, I don't know if that's a very fair comparison, James, but maybe your thoughts, though, about the entitlement factor being a thing, though, and why I think that we see Donovan, Howard, Lawless, and Twellman and Carly Lloyd being so frustrated by how Team USA's men have played over these past couple days.
I just hope that it's something you get at a hotel in the morning, a wake-up call for those young players. That I know players and people this generation, they don't take criticism well. or they'll fire back on social media, on X or Instagram. They'll fire back, or they'll say something, or they won't say anything and just hide in the corner. I hope they take it as pride, as a pride thing, where it's like, hey, we're literally playing for a country, and we're playing for these people who have, set the bar so high, and the trail for everything, like you mentioned, men and women too. And the women, we talked about this so long ago, where the women have just been winning more than the men, of course, like you mentioned with the four ring.
Gold medal this past year in Paris.
Like, how can you not be embarrassed by your performance just based off that? That should make you want to do even better.
That should make you want to play better, and be motivated to actually put that jersey on, like Landon said, and actually go and play. And like Landon said, though, if you don't want to play for Team USA, then decline the invite and let a player who wants to actually represent Team USA actually do it.
Yeah, all I could think of too was when the USA basketball team in 2004, when they medaled bronze.
Right.
It was just like a shock, and it was just ridiculous just to think that would ever happen. And I can only imagine how the dream teams of 92 and 96 felt when they saw, and 2000 as well. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of the 04 team being so individual and just medaling bronze, and how much the other countries were getting to our level here. And then the redeem team happens, Kobe, LeBron, everybody says, okay, we have country pride. I just want to see that from the younger players. I just hope they can I hope they love the game that much that they could take that criticism and use it. But the new generation, it just doesn't happen. They have their social media deals, they have their playing contracts in other countries, wherever. And that's where the entitlement ends up. But just for a national pride thing, I want them just to take the criticism and use it for something. That's all I would really want. Even if they're not good enough, look like you're trying. That's what I'm getting with these Panama and Canada games, where it didn't seem like their heart was in it, from what I'm understanding. And you can never do that in soccer. That's not a sport you do that in. You're laying down literally everyone. From the crowds I see internationally, the MLS crowds, what I saw from the Wave game on YouTube and the supporter section there, you have people that give a damn. Why don't you give a damn?
I couldn't have said it any better. By the way, James, in the last, going back as far back as Thanksgiving, actually, let me go a little bit further back. So let's kind of, in a way, before we move on, James, I'm going to go back and look back through Team USA's record as of 2024 into this year. They lose to Slovenia January 20th, 1-0. They beat Jamaica the following, or in March, in the CONCACAF Nations League semifinal 3-1. They win the final over Mexico to 2-0, the ever infamous 2-0 scoreline, March 24th. Then June 8th, they get clobbered by Colombia 5-1. They tie Brazil June 12th, 1-1. Then in Copa America, which is one of the biannual in-season tournaments that they do alongside the Gold Cup, which is coming back to San Diego next year, I believe, too, or later this year in 2025. They beat Bolivia 2-0. Panama beats them again 2-1 in the second game of the group stage. And in the game they have to win to get out of the group, James, Uruguay 1. Team USA 0 in early July. They're done till September of last year. They lose again to Canada 2-1. They tie New Zealand on the 10th of September. In October, they beat Panama 2-0. But October 15th, they lose to Mexico 2-0. Then in the quarterfinal leg of the CONCACAF Nations League against Jamaica, they win leg 1, 1-0. Then they win leg 2 on aggregate. With aggregate scoring, James, they take the score from game 1 and put it into game 2. So even if you win game 2 1-0, if you lost game 1 3-1, you lose the game in the series in general. So they win the 2 legs 4-2. Then in January, so now for 2025, a win over Venezuela, a win over Costa Rica, another loss on Thursday this past week to Panama, and they lose to Canada. So they're 2-0-2 to start the year. They, James, will not play again until June when they face what looks like Turkey, and they will play. I just lost it here. Give me a second. But they're going to play Turkey, and they're also going to play Switzerland in 2 matches coming up in June. Now, they're exhibitions, and one of those games will be held at Geodis Park in Nashville, Tennessee, home of Nashville SC of MLS. And then the match with Turkey is going to be held at Pratt & Whitney Stadium, which will be in East Hartford, Connecticut. So, James, they have 4 months to figure it out and get back on track. Because right now, for the season in 2025, a year out from the World Cup, James, 2 wins and 2 losses, no ties. Not good.
Yeah, you mentioned they lost to Colombia bad. How would you consider Colombia to be at that time in the World Cup or in the standings?
Maybe like barely top 10. I mean, it still is Team USA, James. Like, it's Team USA playing a little tiny country that goes up there and wipes the floor clean with Team USA.
Yeah, it's just. It seems like they'll never get to that point where the great countries are. And it's always something, again, entitlement, freedom, whatever.
I think, James, a broken youth system for soccer in America as a whole.
I gotta check that out. Maybe somebody has a report on that. But what I've seen in Little League baseball, and then what I'm hearing from you about soccer,
youth sports in general.
Yeah,
Kristen Wilson, James, she writes in that Team USA, mainly the women, really made people stand up and take notice of women's sports. But also, James, at the time, though, this was 2 years removed, though, from the women's NBA starting operation with their 8 franchises. And then, of course, in 99, we all got soccer fever from watching this team play. And like I said, for the third time, but, I got to meet and have known and I've worked with, James, my soccer idol in Shannon McMillan, who I saw in line getting into the stadium on Saturday. Again, I got her name on the back of the jersey I've got because she works for the Wave in the community relations department. But I got to work with Shannon at some soccer games she came to when she was working for San Diego Loyal at USD, and of course now with the Wave when I was covering the team as a freelance writer. Like, I got to work with my soccer idol. One of the reasons why I wore number 8 when I played sports was because of Shannon Mack, James. And I, remember like the first time I got to meet her and work with her, like I kind of fanboyed a bit. Like, I grew up watching her play 99. And then more importantly, James, Shannon was part of the first ever Rio True Women's Soccer League that began play 2 years after the World Cup run, when we had the San Diego Spirit playing at USD. And that was an 8-team league called the WUSA. And that team, James, I was telling my friend Christian Enciso in line, I was like, dude, just think back, though, that at that time, when Team USA players went their separate ways after the 99 team and they began the WUSA, San Diego, James, had Shannon McMillan, Shannon Box, Joy Fawcett, and Julie Foudy on the same flipping team for 2 years between 01 and 03 for the league folded operation. And they all played here, and Shannon is from San Diego. She's done a lot of great work, in her time here. And, it's still, though, James, like, that is, that's someone, James, who, again, laid the foundation for where Team USA women's soccer is at, because of the 99 team and where Team USA soccer should strive to go to as a whole.
Yeah, I can't agree more. You said 4 months, right?
They got 4. Yeah, Team USA men have 4 months till they play their next match.
That's a lot of time to
in
get.
Hartford. They got home games against in Hartford against Turkey, and a home game in Nashville against Switzerland.
That's a lot of time to get it together, but the track record isn't good for this generation's U.S. men's team.
Now again, they're 2-2-0 entering going into that match though, but still these last two games, James, just feel like a big letdown. Mm-hmm. They do. With that, folks, in mind, though, from all things soccer, James, let's talk some March Madness, man. We missed it the past couple days, but we're now kind of finally, James, able to catch our breath after getting up to watch 16 games a day or 8 games a day. James, how about some weekend takeaways, man? Maryland wins at the final buzzer. UConn goes down with a great fight against Florida. Duke is still Duke. Not really, James, though. A lot of compelling drama, though, like we're kind of used to, though. But James, reaction, though, from March Madness from this past weekend. What do you got?
Yeah, I did mention that the round of 32 wouldn't be as exciting, and it's almost a testament to what is maybe going on because of NIL, because of the transfers, that you don't have any Cinderella teams like making a George Mason run anymore, and you're kind of seeing that
Chicago,
early.
San Diego State.
Yeah, you're kind of seeing that early where you don't have those anymore. What I predicted in the bracket isn't happening, of course. Auburn took care of Creighton. A little shaky at first.
Foregone conclusion.
Yeah, but they did that. Michigan looks strong. They play a good game offensively, and then defensively they get tough. And they took out Texas A&M. Those two will meet, of course, in the Sweet 16. I didn't have Ole Miss. But
neither did I.
They are
kind of a sleeper, I feel like, now all of a sudden.
If there's any team, I don't know if you could trust them against Michigan State, but
still, though, they could be a dark horse.
They would have to play the same game where you just take the scoring out of Iowa State, but you have to transfer that to Michigan State, who took care of New Mexico. And I figured Michigan State would be too much for New Mexico. And so that's going to be an interesting one.
Props, though, to the Lobos, man. They were in that game for a long time. I think they even led at the half, too, which is compelling.
The sad part, I think they said that the last time they made the Sweet 16 was 1969, before they had the 64
before it
format.
Expanded.
Yeah, before they expanded. So it would have been nice to get rid of that barrier. That would have been great. Florida and UConn, man, that game I
was on the edge of my seat. I was like, is my bracket going to bust? I have Florida in the national title game, but the Huskies can pull it out.
Yeah, just that game woke me up. It made me compelled. I ordered breakfast because of that. That was awesome. The sad part about it was not really the referee calls, but the way that, again, we mentioned Dan Hurley being a tyrant, being himself, and never a shell of himself either.
No.
The rant going into the tunnel, telling the other team coming on the court, hey, don't get you-know-what by the refs like we did. I think he's probably going to get, some reprimanded because of that. We'll see.
Fine $5,000 for abuse of the officials.
Yeah. Florida, though, looks very strong. They finally got their best player going late after he didn't really score much, and they finally woke up and they really clamped down. You could tell UConn, after 2 years of dominating, that they were missing something that would get them to the next level.
Without a doubt, absolutely.
So that's unfortunate. Maryland, again, it would have been great to see Colorado in the run that they were on.
I don't think had a buzzer beater, though. Like, it was so weird. Like, there was no, like I said, Joe James, at the start, there was really no compelling drama. We had some games come down to the wire, and then they became like a blowout late. But nothing, though, like having a buzzer beater finally happen on day 4 of a tournament.
And I just felt so bad for the Rams because of their run. Again, they won, 11 in a row or 12? Yeah, 11 in a row to get in, or 10 to get in. Then they won their 11th in the first round. and it came down to that last shot. I don't think the man traveled. I think he gathered and then took 2 steps.
And
so
shot off in plenty of time still, regardless. So it wouldn't
that
really
too.
matter.
And I'm just worried though they're gonna have. I hope this doesn't happen, but they're gonna have coaches have a challenge for like any type of play.
Yeah, just like the NBA. I mean, but James, I hate to say it though, but you've been advocating for the game to snap into reality and finally adapt something like the NBA. Quarters, team fouls, and why not a challenge system?
And again, too many damn timeouts and breaks. I know they got to get the ads in. Hey, we'll be back. Hey, another timeout. We'll be back. Hey, another review. Another look at the time or look at the call. Just under a minute, that just screws up the whole momentum of the game.
A lot like the last 2 minutes of an NBA game, like where I always say, James, like when a team does get screwed by a call in the NBA, there's the last 2 minute report where they write a thorough, like Chat GPT generated, document of like, well, the referee missed this, they missed this. Again, it doesn't matter because the result is not going to come off the board.
So that reminds me, the Clippers had 2 missed calls against them, and the 2-minute warning report came out against OKC, and it turns out the lie detector said it was 2 fouls against Oklahoma City, but they were not called. Oklahoma City went on to win last night against the Clippers, but that triggered me right now. Maryland should get handled by Florida in the next round. We'll see. The Drake run comes to an end. Make a song about it. Texas Tech looked really strong. They defeat Drake 77-64. Arkansas and St. John's. Man, did I have so many opinions.
Wow.
Man, did I yell at nobody at all except me in the room. Where do I start? Jesus.
I mean, you and me both lost the games. I think we both picked St. John's.
No, I did. Yeah, I had him going all the way to final or Elite Eight. Excuse me.
So did I.
No, just the rate of fouls in this game were ridiculous.
Oh, James, I'm right there with you because my dad and I were getting pissed at the television. Like, why interject in a game like that when you've got 2 Hall of Fame coaches? And I mean, now, James, more importantly, now we can see that the referees were the main problem in that game between Arkansas and St. John's, and Calipari still owns Pitino. James, my gripe, though, not because of the bracket, screw the bracket. The former co-host on this network is in last place in the group and still claims he has a perfect bracket. But more importantly, though, James, my gripe, though, with this particular game, how does Rick Pitino keep his best player on the bench in a do-or-die situation? I thought that was absolute BS.
Okay, it's old school coaching when you go with the hands that are not cold, if you get what I'm saying. That's what I thought Rick Pitino did. Like, I've seen it done. It's not really done in the NBA because then you'll lose your job the next day in the regular season, or after the playoffs you lose your job.
The only time I can ever recall a star player or a player like Lewis getting benched in that moment, I think back to Candace Parker being benched by Derek Fisher in the 20.
Oh, that's right.
2019 league semifinals versus Connecticut in Long Beach. They were getting clobbered, and Derek didn't put her back in the game, and that was where Candace Parker said, I'm heading to Chicago.
Yeah, I somehow remember a little bit of that, but it ended up being Fisher's last job, I think, or at least
he became the team GM and head coach the following season.
He was the intern.
He got the head coaching job. Then when Penny Toller, the GM, left because she had filed a lawsuit about, false reporting about her calling players MFers in the locker room, he got promoted during the bubble year in Bradenton, Florida.
Wow. I didn't read that part about it, but I know Fisher.
I would recommend, James, you watch Candace Parker Unapologetic on ESPN Plus. It's like her biography, and she kind of talks about that situation on ESPN Plus.
That's just crazy. But going back to RJ Lewis.
But yes.
And yeah, I think it's just the point where it's like, hey, we need whoever will contribute. But he was the conference player of the year, right? In the Big East. He was
like,
everything.
how do you not
him.
go back to him, regardless of how good or bad he's playing? He's your guy.
That right away, when he was sitting there and there was like 3 minutes to go, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to bring him back in. He's got to go
and
back
he never
in.
did. I was even saying the same thing, like, okay, bring him in, coach. Bring him in, coach. Rick, what are you doing?
And the announcers are saying
like, what are you doing? I was literally like, no way that this just happened.
We got to watch some games together because we probably have the same
April 12th
feelings with basketball though, because I would know more about that though. But Alabama, they played tough down the end. In the end, they didn't get into as much foul trouble as St. John's, but the rate of fouls were just awful. I don't want to say no, I'm not going to say the officials were tired, whatever the case was. They've been
what my other problem has been, though, James? The awful and atrocious free throw shooting this whole tournament.
That is true.
It has been awful.
That was St. John's.
This has to be one of the worst free throw shooting tournaments of all time, it feels like, by percentage or just in general. Like every other time, James, it's clank, clank, clank. Like, how many, you guys don't do free throw drills after practice? Like, come on now.
Don't keep the door open. I always say that whenever.
I heard Lisa Byington and her crew say that when U of A was playing Oregon late on
That was a big one. Yeah, that was a big one, too.
I kept hearing Jalen Rose say, well, door's still open. Well, the door's still open.
I always say it, and I hate it because it will happen with the Clippers a lot. The other thing, too, is St. John's. They shot 2 for 22 from downtown, and I had to look at it.
Going to the well, like you're going to keep getting burned eventually. And it's like, why not change your game plan and just drive the ball inside and get fouls that way?
That was all the first half too. When they missed, I think the majority of them, they just kept going to it, and they kept missing, kept hitting the side of the rim or the backboard,
front of the rim.
Awful. I felt bad for Alejo for Zodi.
He fouled out early in that game too, which was ridiculous.
And he put up 23 points and 12 rebounds. If he didn't foul out, who knows? Maybe 30,
win the
20 game. And they win the game because of by the way, Arkansas shot 2 for 19 from 3 as well.
They weren't any better?
No. Arkansas won 75-66, but it was just one of those games mirrored by coaching decisions, mirrored by the referee calls, the phantom.
And Calipari seems to own Patino.
Yeah, going back to,
Louisville and Kentucky.
Louisville. What's the other one in the 90s? They showed it to, I think Patino was at UMass and Kentucky, or Calipari. No, Calipari was at, oh God, I can't remember what it was, but it was a rivalry going back in the tournament since the 90s. But St. John's ended up losing and kind of messes up the bracket for me. The East bracket, though, Duke that was no game at all. And it wasn't just Cooper Flagg. It was all of the other Duke Blue Devils in the starting lineup all had a hand in good shooting, good defensive game. That's why I have them winning it all. They beat Baylor. Baylor, unfortunately, was not enough. Not enough talent to beat a team like Duke, even though, is it Bryce? Yeah, Bryce Drew. No. I forget the coach name at Baylor, but he's won a title before, but I don't think the field was as strong as it is in this tournament. We had Oregon and Arizona. Of course, I felt great about that, and the fact that
the Pac-12, Big 12 versus Big 10.
Yeah. It just made me sick to see the conference logos on each uniform. I just hated that. But yeah, 2 great coaches, and it ended up, Arizona beating them out. Again, the free throw shooting awful by Oregon. They just didn't have enough firepower. And I think Arizona is finally going to meet their match in Duke next week.
By the way, how long has Oregon basketball been calling themselves the Fighting Ducks? That was a new thing I saw.
I swore I've seen it over 10 years ago when it started. They
Fighting,
had a uniform.
fighting ducks though. What?
Yeah, they had a uniform, and usually they would wear it in the tournament as well, or it'd be like a special because Phil Knight. So you could have
It's
any
Oregon.
yeah. But I've seen that for a while, and I didn't even really notice it on the jersey too. But
I'm waiting for them to put Mighty Ducks on them next time. Like, just
I
don't know.
Sometimes they look like crossing guards, or sometimes you can't see them. That's how the uniforms are to me. BYU just keeps shocking everybody, but they just play in a good shooting system.
They do.
And they kind of, I know they escaped against Wisconsin, but I think it came down to free throws and they made theirs. They will be playing Alabama, who took care of St. Mary's, sadly. That was 80-66. It was Alabama just having too much. So that's going to be an interesting battle between Alabama and BYU because you have two different styles. Even though Bama can't shoot the three ball,
Bama wants to bump you, go down low, and BYU wants to shoot the lights out of the gym.
It's the Southern way of playing versus the fundamental way of playing, and that's going to be very interesting. Okay, Houston took care of Gonzaga. That game had a little bit of issues there, but
the West Coast Conference still went 2-1, and they also beat the SEC twice. So, yes, I know ball.
Purdue took care of McNeese. That was fun while it lasted for McNeese. But Purdue, I was wrong. I didn't think they had enough to. Remember, I thought they were going to lose to High Point. Whoops.
High Point gave them all they could handle, though, which is good to see, or was good to see.
Yeah. Kentucky, that was kind of an interesting game with Illinois, but Kentucky again, just they had more talent than Illinois in that. And then Tennessee just took care of UCLA. I think this is as far as UCLA was going to go anyway. 66.
And how about another tirade from Mick Cronin post game?
I forgot what he said, but he's like,
it was about getting on the flight and flying home, and it was on Allegiant Airlines, and it was typical Mick Cronin. Nothing new.
He had maybe 5, not quotable, but just 5 things he said this year or this season, first with the Big Ten, that just really wouldn't make, as parents, it wouldn't make your it wouldn't feel comfortable putting your kid with that coach. It would just be like, okay, he's treating it like a professional, and this is school. So what is it? Sweet 16s by conference, real quick. SEC still has 7, but they had 16, right? The Big 10 and Big 12 have 4 left, and the ACC only has Duke left in the tournament. There was this talk too, and I don't know if it's going to happen or the thought about this, Callan, just it kind of hit me and then it kind of went away. Somebody asked Seth Greenberg about, because of the dominance of the Big Ten and the SEC getting teams in, do you think the Big East and the ACC should merge and be a conference? Now, I love the idea of, Duke, Syracuse playing and whomever, but the lower teams, the losing teams, you would kind of have to kick out and go to another conference. So that's the only thing about it. I just wish the ACC would have to kind of give away the teams that they acquired from the Big East. I think that's the only way you could do it. But then you have teams like Duke there, North Carolina, Florida State, that could be a conference by themselves. But just to bring them together, this is my last thing, but would you be in favor of that to go against the other conferences?
I don't think that would work, sadly. As much as I hate realignment, and again, I hated seeing that Big Ten logo on the floor at Galen Center watching USC's women's team. We'll talk about them shortly. I don't know if that would work, James. I mean, I get what we're trying to do, but again, I'm not on board for realignment. Now, I can confirm real quick that there's been confirmed reports that California Baptist University is going to jump from the WAC to the Big West coming up,
really?
To fill the void that is being left by UC Davis and by the University of Hawaii at Manoa, because Hawaii is going to the Mountain West full-time, and Davis is going to the Mountain West full-time, but they're keeping their football program 1AA in the Big Sky. So CBU jumps from the WAC to the Big West Conference come, I believe, next school year. James, like, I understand like that logic, but again, I've long been against it. I don't think it's going to work. I really truly think that Stanford and Cal is going to get tired of the travel with the All Coast Conference or the Atlantic Coast. Eventually, I think that SC and UCLA, James, are going to get tired of it too when it comes to baseball, when it comes to, again, the sports that no one out there except for you and me cares about, like volleyball and soccer and baseball and softball. You know, if it's not football, again, it's good for football, but it's not good for the other athletes. Again, I have been on that soapbox for a long time. Again, I work in college athletics. I have talked to players on my teams at USD, and they, for one, you know, kind of in a way, you know, excuse or whatnot, but they don't travel that far because, you know, whether the school can't afford to go that far to the East Coast to play games. So they have to have them come out to the West Coast, though. But when you're a sport, though, like mid-major baseball and mid-major softball, and, you know, for USD's sake, they've had to play a lot of their games on the road because of a full-fledged multi-million-dollar year-long brand new complex was built for the softball team to keep up with where we are nowadays in college athletics. They've been playing in, they have traveled to San Marcos, Texas, Ogden, Utah. They've gone to Riverside. They've gone to, you know, across Southern California. They've gone to Phoenix, but they have had to travel all sorts of areas because their home field has not been able to be used until a week from this Saturday, when they have their first ever true home games since they played a weekend series at a local high school, because they've had no home field here on campus. So, wow. Though, James, I understand about like maybe the Big East and ACC. You know, I thought about that with the West Coast and the WAC joining forces because of where we're at now with realignment, and just the fact of, you know, that more of those conferences, James, the West Coast, the WAC, the Big East, they're not going to survive, sadly, because of where it's only about the Big Ten. It's only about the SEC and the ACC and, you know, all the, you know, the Big 12 and things like that. And again, and I doubt that this new Pac-12, James, like I've been saying, it's not going to move the needle. You know, my good man, Braden Soprenet, who's now the midday host on 97.3 The Fan here in San Diego, he basically said the same thing. Like, you know, if we really believe that the Pac-12 will save San Diego State, then we're stupid in a way. And sidebar story, James, Nick Boyd and Magoon Guath from the men's team are now in the portal because they're going to go and look, James, sadly, at a bigger name school who's going deep in the tournament because of money. And if that's really, James, where we're heading nowadays, then I don't want to be a part of it in this fashion, which is why I like that I'm at a mid-major university, because we make our money off basketball at my university. And yes, I know that we have players in the portal, but then again, James, what program doesn't have guys in the portal right now, or ladies in the portal, because they're seeking the dollars and they're seeking, you know, chances to play. Like, I get why the moves were made, James, for the realignment, but it still is going to come back eventually and burn somebody in the ass. Where, like, for example, Cal Poly SLO, they have cut swim and dive from their athletic programs at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. That other sports that are not football are going to be cut. Is that good? And is that what we want for college athletes who want to continue playing, that if you're not a football player, no one gives a shit about your sport, and that we start losing basketball programs, we lose baseball programs, we lose soccer, track and field, all the sports that probably the average, you know, sports fan doesn't give a shit about, but people like me care about, and people in sports that James cares about, then we're going to lose college athletics across the board if it's only about football and maybe about men's basketball if it's in certain conferences, James. I don't know if you agree with me here, but that's where I think we're kind of heading, is that NIL, though I love it, is going to start killing, you know, mid-major conferences and mid-major sports, where now schools that may face budget deficits, James, either cut programs, or some schools, James, cut athletics as a whole. And it's all because people are seeing dollars and cents with football, and they don't care about the other sports that football supplements and feeds into for an athletic department in the college in college.
I do. And then the fact that we had more than 500 college players enter the portal. And
more importantly, James, why in the HE double hockey sticks is the portal, like I usually say, why is it open now? I will say again, James, and I have been on this soapbox too, the portal cannot be open while the season is going.
Thank you.
That would be like, James, like I said, that would be like, players in baseball, in football, hockey, soccer, and any sport having the chance to say, oh, I'm going to opt out of a season and become a free agent, then go to the Dodgers in the middle of a season. Not be a trade, not be a waiver, not be a trade or any sort of regular transactional thing. Just, I don't want to play for the Marlins. I want to go play for the Dodgers. Like that's James, that's literally what it feels like right now when you have players like Boyd and Guaff in the portal. We still have games going on. Scottie Pippen Jr., I believe, James, is in the portal, and Michigan is still playing in the next round, where I will say again, the portal can open up 12:01 a.m. the day after you crown the national champs. But that's not when teams are still playing and you have guys now who are not really invested. Like, I'm sure Pippen Jr., James, and I hope so. I hope he catches some flack from teammates. Like, you're going to dip out on us when the year is over. Like, what if we win the Natty? Oh, I don't care. I want to get my money and stuff like that. Again, I do believe in NIL if it's used for the right reasons, but not to keep jumping ship and start being like, Kevin Durant to chase money and chase winning championships. I'd rather, again, someone be loyal to a franchise, or in this case, be loyal to a school for 4 years and not chase the money and not chase the fame and the endorsements. And I agree with Christy Wilson. This is all about players being selfish, and I kind of, James, in a way, Nick Boyd got body slammed in Lee Hacksaw Hamilton's One Man's Opinion piece today by, he was talking big game of, hey, don't worry, I'll be back next season. And then, I'm going to enter the portal instead. That, James, felt like to me as a native San Diegan, that felt like Kevin Brown after the 98 Padres lost the World Series he said, oh, I'm going to come back. And he signs with the freaking Dodgers the next season.
I didn't know that. Wow. Justin Pippen. Scottie Pippen Jr. is with an NBA team.
It was one of the Pippins, but I saw that. I'm like, okay, you're going to really dip out on your teammates now in the middle of a season? Give me a break.
Didn't think that was ever going to happen during March Madness. We talked about 2 years ago at Florida State players not wanting to play in their bowl game. So a bunch of them transferred.
The loser bowl, as I called it on Press Row.
Yeah, I remember that. And then also you have a coach, which we've seen this before, but Will Wade, he took the North Carolina State job while McNeese was in between rounds.
Sean Miller just took the job, I believe, at
Texas. Yeah,
after they canned Rodney Terry after they imploded against Xavier.
That's just crazy to me.
But still, though, how is coaches could be the exemption, I guess, James. But players can't be doing this sort of stuff, because I think, though, it's a bad look, for Pippen Jr. to just say, well, I'm out of here. So you're gonna bail on these guys you've gone to war with for the whole season, and you're still playing games. But now I need money in the bank. I don't care if my dad won 6 rings and he hates Michael Jordan. I need to get my own money and stop mooching off my parents. It's a piss poor look, though, when that happens. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, I have this scenario. I was going to save it for the random topic, but it was going to be for that. But I think I'll just do it now, because I was thinking about this yesterday. Believe it or not, I was thinking about something. But it had to do with basketball, of course, because that's all I saw. Okay. Can you want these players to play 4 seasons, right? Like Dickinson did. I know there's a couple of other seniors that are still in the tournament, whatever the case is, okay?
Maybe not 4 years. At least be loyal to the program and don't be one and done to go and fetch more money elsewhere because, I can get like a freaking Lamborghini from Colorado for football. Give me a break.
Check this out. Okay, let's say you could transfer NIL deals. You could transfer after your freshman year. And then after your junior year, you have, or after your, I'm sorry, after your sophomore year, after you transfer once, you can only transfer one more time, and you either play 2 years to finish the 4 years at the one college or university, or you go to the league after your junior year. I was thinking about that the other day. It would stop like the junior, the junior moving to somewhere else to be a senior. I just thought about it where it's like, okay, you don't get to transfer every single year. Once you go up in class, you stop transferring after your junior year, and you have to play for that university.
James,
you
it's
sign a
simple as
2-year
this.
deal.
James, I think it's simple as this. You get your one free transfer, and then after that, you have to sit out a season. I don't care. I'm tired of. Yeah, I think that, and I know that NIL is running the roost right now, but I still think that it kind of in a way happened to me. I had my one free transfer out of my high school to the different one I went to, and I got to play 3 years there. But if I would have transferred again, I would have had to sit out a full either half season or a full season because I made the move more than once. I think you have to bring that ruling back. And I don't care, again, I do believe in NIL deals if it's for the right reasons, not about the endorsements are one thing. But again, it's mainly for a lot of the things, though, that I hear from student athletes firsthand about not having money to buy lunch on campus one day, or having to get a ride to work, or paying a friend back for, going to a sporting event, like human being reasons, not for the fact of being on TV for State Farm insurance commercials and then just getting the money that way. Simple as that.
Yeah, when you mention that, I think about the Fab Four documentary, how they were on campus, but even though Nike was making, money off of them, they were having a hard time, like
getting by.
Paying
food, for gas money, paying for
gas
food.
money for cars. They would throw in extra tacos because they knew who they were, but that's why they had to go and get help with whomever gains that gave them stuff, and it turned out to be the whole thing. And it's just funny how all those years later, how we have the NILs, how we have the transfers, and it's just free game. But it's almost like what's going on with baseball and salaries, MLB. It's like you just want to put a cap on that with the NIL and the transfer.
And I think, though, that Brandon Herrera, James, has had a great argument. Make the NIL tied into their scholarship. That would stop it. Maybe.
Well, almost like college needs a lockout to get their stuff right.
But yet they're going to be getting $22 million a piece from the House when the lawsuit is finally settled, and all the schools get money that way too. So,
wow,
never
a perfect solution in college sports, especially.
There isn't, James. We'll move away, my man, from the men's side to the women's side, James. And sadly, it is on a very sad note. The USC women's basketball team, at last check, had demolished Mississippi State, though. But, James, not without, though, my man, concern and, of course, a very, I think, tough pill to swallow for the women of Troy. Juju Watkins, done for the season, left the game after being carried off the floor in probably, James, her final, not her final game ever at Galen Center, but certainly her last game ever for the season. But that, of course, James, came under the circumstances, though, of the Trojans absolutely clobbering Mississippi State early to start the game, though. But Juju Watkins in transition late in the first quarter, James, on a breakaway, kind of with two players around her, two players around her, James, but sadly went towards the basket, lost her footing, and appeared, though, James, to rip her right ACL. It was she had gone down in a heap, though. The instant reaction of grabbing her knee, putting her hand over her head, and then the arena going dead silent, James. And I texted you right away about what had happened. And I had a buddy of mine, my fellow announcing colleague, Daniel Tom, who was at the game at Galen Center. And right away he said it's an ACL, hopefully a hyperextension, but it looks like it's worse than what it was. And when I saw Juju, James, get carried off the court, I knew it was an ACL. I have, of course, been, like I say, James, been a part of college athletics for a long time. I have sadly seen my fair share of ACL injuries, and they are and they're a menace. You know, they suck. It hurts when it happens. And it's just mainly, and I think, James, and I think that this has actually been documented, though, that torn ACLs in athletes happens at a higher rate for female athletes than male athletes, I believe. And I knew it was bad, and I kind of figured it was an ACL. And especially when she was carried off the court, that's when I kind of knew it was an ACL. And it really sucks, though, James, because Juju has done nothing but great things, though. And I think, James, that because we all, I think, in a way, were wondering how women's hoops would be after the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, because of Clark and Reese these past 2 years at LSU and Iowa, and who would step up to the plate to be like the next face of women's college basketball. And we've had Paige Beckers at UConn. We've had Flau'jae Johnson at LSU. We've had Haley Van Lith and her story going to TCU. And then, of course, we had Juju. And I think that everyone out there loves Juju. I love all those players, James, who have been kind of like, in the commercials. I know that I just kind of, in a way, said that I don't like NIL now, although I still think I do, but I still love it. But like, Juju and her appearances and Paige having hers and, Flau'jae Johnson, James, between her rap career and her basketball career, Flau'jae Johnson, James, just literally came out with Experian. She's going to cancel $5 million worth of debt for underserved Louisiana families. Athletes using their platform for the right reasons and their NIL for the right reasons, James. But I will say, James, this really pissed me off, though. Shame on you fans at Galen Center for booing Mississippi State every time they got the ball after Juju got injured. That is pure classlessness from a great school in Southern California, who I think is one of the classiest fan bases out there, to stoop to Dodger fandom from last year's NLDS. Give me a break. I was appalled, James, when that happened. I even told you they are booing every time that the Bulldogs get possession of the ball. James, there was no intention there. It just happened to be that a player kind of bumped into her a little bit, though. But I mainly, James, blamed the floor for being kind of slick in that area where Juju's foot kind of, gave out on her and again, jarred the knee, kind of hyperextended, though. But, James, shame on you USC fans for pulling that page out of the LA Sports Fan playbook and booing that team the whole rest of the game, though, when you were already up by 20 points at halftime. I thought it was classless and very much, James, very ignorant and stupid, because there was no malicious intent there. They even reviewed it, though, James, for a flagrant one. There was nothing there for a flagrant. It was a simple basketball play. Juju happened to sadly, lose her footing, though. And again, I was very appalled, James, by a very great USC fan base to boo the opposition because their star player got hurt. I thought that was in bad taste and really, James, shameful on those fans up there at Galen tonight. But James, just sadly though, man, overall thoughts on the whole night as a whole, though, with Juju Watkins. I think we're still waiting for a official prognosis, though, but I'm going to assume, though, it's a ripped ACL and she's done for the remainder of the tournament and probably done for next season too.
Yeah, it's one of those tragic happenings, of course, in sports. And it's even more tragic when you see someone getting carried off, not rolled off. But it seems like in college, you see people get carried off more than rolled off. I don't know if it's lack of preparation or just the quickness of everything. You just have to do it right away, I guess. Get her off the floor, or she wanted to go out like that, or she didn't want to take a wheelchair. I remember seeing the play finally on X as I was walking too, so that was kind of tricky. But the defender literally just kind of put a bump there, and her other hand was up, trying to stop her from getting to the basket. That's all it was. And then the other defender's just on the outside, with her arms out, whatever the case was. So there was really no intent.
Real quick before you continue, within the last hour, Shams Charania reports that Juju, in fact, confirmed torn ACL right leg. She's undergoing surgery, and she's officially done for the season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Shams, of course, coming through always. Okay, so, yeah, there was no intent. There was no malicious, play at all defensively, nothing at all. But I went back and heard the crowd immediately after. When she's on the ground, they pick her up, and again, that's the toughest image, to see her get picked up like that. And the fact that she, sat up or whatever, everybody started cheering, and the way that she was carried off, it was just like
I've seen it so many times in my time in college sports games, and I dread it so damn much, man. It literally makes my heart break. It really does.
I imagine in soccer, you see it the most.
I saw it firsthand a couple years ago, and it happened, James, right in front of me when I was doing play-by-play at PLNU, and you can literally hear the screams through the headset. You can hear them calling for the trainer by their first name. And when I knew that, and when I heard, Nicole, the team trainer for the women's soccer team at PLNU, like, that's an ACL.
Yeah, that's just it's part of the game, but it's just the tragedy of it. Okay, so after that, again, no maliciousness, nothing like that. What I heard these two women, they were sitting behind the Mississippi State bench, and I can't really make out what they were saying, but I could just tell it was in a malicious type of way. What they were saying at the bench, maybe at the cheerleaders, because it happened right in front of the cheerleaders, but the cheerleaders kept looking over, the men and women of the Mississippi cheer team kept looking over there, not at what was going on. They were deflected because they were hearing probably some insults coming their way.
Which went to my point, though, about, come on now.
It's just the way that they are, and then once they finally have something good, that's just the way that area, or the folks act like that. I'm not gonna get like, sex or race or anything like that, but you just know, because of who Juju is, that's part of that. Even though it was, they were all, the same race happening at that time. Yeah. Now, okay, for me, again, I was hoping for a Final Four run. I don't know where they'll end up now, but
they go to Spokane on Saturday to play 5th seed Kansas State.
And Kansas State has kind of been shocking people, so I imagine K-State will win that, but hopefully they can rally around what has gone on. Again, the velocity of all that happening, where she's being carried off, is just it's the worst thing you can ever see, I think, on the court. I know it was like with Hank Gathers, that was the worst thing ever, but
absolutely,
that right there, because of injury and because of who it is, I just hope that she could come back, again, maybe not as explosive, but just even better skilled because of what happened. And the thing was too, it looked like the left foot slid because of a wet spot, possibly, or the way that she was trying to maneuver. But you see the
she had two defenders kind of, flanking her as she made her way down after the steal at midcourt.
Yeah, the right leg, though, is the one that tweaks and goes.
It gave way, and
at first I thought it was the left one because of the slip, but that would have been a different type of injury. But then you see the right one, and it's like, okay, that's the worst thing. So it's a tragic thing. It happens, but it's going to be hard for those women in Troy to go forward. You could just tell they were all just shook by what happened. So it's just bad all around. I don't care about the win anymore, really.
Yeah, no, and I get it, and per the reports in the LA Times, though, that Lindsay Gottlieb, the head coach, was very shaken too, giving her responses about the injury because of what Juju has meant to the team, to USC as a whole. Again, kind of putting that proud program on the map, though, which is why, James, I was so appalled, though, by how the fan base reacted. Like, it felt like, James, every time that the Bulldogs got the ball, they booed them the whole entire possession. And I'm just like, for a fan base, James, who, got to watch Lisa Leslie play and watch Cheryl Miller play, that just, I think, crossed every line in the book, though, for that fan base at Galen Center to act in that manner, where, again, there wasn't like a punch to the face. It wasn't like a cheap shot that happened. It was a basketball play that just happened to happen. And I know that you kind of said, well, USC gets something good to happen for them, and then this happens in a way. Still, James, I'm not letting the fan base off the hook, though, for what happened, though, because there's just no room for that in any sport, though. And I don't care if it's women's basketball or not, though. There's just no room for that. Like, it's a basketball play, and that's all that it was. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I just want to know just what was said by the fans. Maybe they'll keep it on the hush, but
they will. But it still doesn't take away, though, of that they booed the opposition for a whole game because their star player got hurt.
I know. I don't want to say it, but Cheryl Miller kind of put it out there. I saw her podcast with she was a guest of Up in Smoke, I think it was, with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. And she mentions, like, women, they're going to be more petty or more whatever the case is. And you just saw that with the crowd tonight, I think.
Yeah, true story before we get to our baseball preview, as we're now well past the midnight hour here on this Tuesday, is
my fault.
Cheryl got into coaching, James, at the D2 level at CSU Los Angeles, and they came to Point Loma one year for a tournament. And oh my goodness, man, that was a eye-opening experience, James, calling games when she was coaching. Because I had a friend, Sabrina White, who was an assistant, I believe, at the time at CSU LA before Cheryl got let go. I mean, Cheryl, James, was about as intense, if not more intense, coaching than she was playing. And I remember I got a lot of dirty looks for certain things I said on the broadcast. She would, try to break clipboards during timeouts because the team was not playing great. She'd kick over chairs. And I was just like sitting here, at my spotlight, trying not to make a sudden move because I didn't know what was going to happen. But I kind of think, though, that Cheryl Miller kind of, and again, I think, she was great for the game, though, but I think she's kind of in a way like kind of towing the line just a little too much, though, with these media appearances over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, she's been out there. I think she said she doesn't want to do coaching again just because of all the stress that came with it, but she wants to be somewhat of an ambassador for the WNBA, possibly.
By the way, could you imagine if she got to play in the WNBA? Holy crap. Baby.
I know that was the first.
That's one of the best what ifs ever in sports history, without a doubt.
Yeah. The first thing I think they asked her, and she said, I never really think about it anymore. It's a different time. But I went back and saw some games, I think last year, or it had to be last year, of her and then Kim Mulkey playing. I think it was for Louisiana.
La Tech, yeah.
And how small she was, but she would maneuver so well, penetrate and kick and pass well. I can imagine her playing in the league now, but Cheryl Miller would have been
a great scorer and probably a bit of a enforcer as well.
That too, just what I've seen, the games with her at USC. Sometimes I'll go back and watch some more highlights, but they're hard to find too. But oh my God! And then the way that she coached, I forgot where she did in the WNBA, but she mentioned it was so tough. Oh yeah, it was with the Mercury. Yeah, how tough it was for her.
Jennifer Gillum, Michelle Timms at one point in time playing there for them. Yeah,
I remember Timms. But it was almost like when Magic Johnson was the coach of the Lakers, and he wanted everybody to be like him. And Michael Cooper told him, take a step back. Not everybody can play like you. And Magic couldn't take it anymore.
And I thought Coop was a great WNBA coach. He coached Candace Parker her rookie year with Lisa Leslie at the end of her career. He coached in Atlanta, got into the finals in 2013, I want to say, or 2014. Had a great run there. Then he obviously retired from coaching.
And now he's a Hall of Famer, thank God. But there was another story with Michael Cooper and, getting Lisa Leslie to just get tougher. And she did that. She was known as a finesse player, but later on tougher. And it took Michael Cooper to tell her that. And they went on to win the back-to-back in 2000, 2001, I think. And It's just those little things that maybe you need to push, maybe you need to be coached. But Cheryl Miller would have been crazy. I would have loved to have been there to hear her if she was ever mic'd up being a coach. I would have loved being there with you, but I would have been scared for you as well.
I lived to talk about it, but yeah, Cheryl was great though, man. I mean, away from the game though, great person, very approachable, but like on the court though, between the lines though, and I get it though, former player, absolutely, without a doubt.
There was one time, it's on YouTube, I think, but she's working at NBA TV, and she scolds Scott Pollard for being late to the set, late to the show. And you could just tell it's meaningful. It's like real. It's not fake at all. Like she did that for everybody. She mentioned how she did not get along with Cynthia Cooper, even though they played well together at college. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all.
I randomly met Cynthia Cooper at the Orleans Hotel in Vegas for my parents' 35th wedding anniversary about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was the only guy who knew who that was in the hotel lobby. I'm like, this is Cynthia
I would have
Cooper.
recognized her. I would have.
You and me both would have.
I would say thank you for making, winning those championships, watching WNBA early. And if I would have known about Cheryl Miller, I would have asked her stories about like the team meetings and the practices and the game situations, but little things like that. Yeah, I got to do a deep dive with Cheryl Miller someday. And I don't even know where they got the intensity from. I think they just got it from other people. They didn't get it from their parents. They were just strict.
I would just think that maybe that Cheryl got it from, that Reggie probably got his from Cheryl at one point.
Oh, definitely. There's no doubt about it. That's a big what if in sports history for sure.
From all things basketball, James, let's talk some baseball. 2 days away now, my friend, on this Tuesday, away from the official opening, although we had the opening in Japan. Why? My best impersonation. Why are we doing this? James, we'll start out in the American League, my friend, and start out east, New York. Of course, the Yankees were in the World Series last year. Orioles, again, playing good, but once more can't win playoff games. Then, of course, Boston, Toronto, and Tampa Bay. James, how do you like the American League East stacking up this year?
Okay. Did a deep dive. Probably going to do 3 shows on divisional predictions this week. So if I repeat myself and everybody watches, whatever.
They will know damn well who you pick, though, over the next 3 days.
They better and write it down. Okay, Baltimore, I think, wins the East. I think they did just enough. Their payroll went up $40 million more. They were able to get some starting pitching help
despite
after
losing
Corbin Burns,
though, huh?
And Santander. But I think with Tyler O'Neill and the young guys that they have, they'll only get more opportunities. The bullpen is back with Batista and Cano being together. I think that's huge as well. You saw them without Batista, and the bullpen just imploded. Just too much put on Cano. Okay, so yeah, Orioles, I think, win that only because of the Yankee injuries, because of Stanton maybe out for the whole year.
Talking about double surgery.
That just sounds awful.
On both elbows.
That sounds awful. What did they say? They used a different kind of bat in the off season and screwed up the elbows or something in training this year.
You got me.
Before they went to spring training, I think Hacksaw mentioned. But yeah, without Garrett Cole, and then Hill's out for, I think, 2.5 more months, I want to say. Even though they signed for Reed, you never know with his injury history. And their offense without Juan Soto moving across the borough to Queens, that kind of takes a little hit there. You're unsure about their infield a little bit. You're wondering if Paul Goldschmidt has anything left in the tank playing first.
Cody Bellinger
in center field. You're wondering if he can regain his stride and love the ballpark he's going to play in. But just because of the injuries, I had to pick Baltimore. Last week I had New York in before the Cole injury. But yeah, Baltimore. Red Sox, they're young, but they did make some signings of Bregman and moving Devers to DH, thank God. Campbell coming up should be a great rookie. They have a couple of other rookies that might shine if they're brought up. They did well with their pitching. They traded for Crochet from the White Sox. I bet he's happy. Walker Buehler came from the Dodgers. I think they just got better, and what they needed they got this offseason instead of last offseason. It felt like they were missing something. They couldn't get it. They couldn't get anything, and they finally got it. All right, the Rays having to play because of natural disaster, Mother Nature, I should say, at Steinbrenner Field. That's going to be weird. They made some odd signings like they always do. McClanahan just got hurt with his tricep injury, I think. That's going to hurt. He won't start opening day, of course. But I have the Jays in fourth. Even though they have the 10th ranked farm system, they're not going to be as good as previous years. I mean, they kept winning despite playing in a dump and playing in the AL East. It's just a credit to what they've been able to do. But it's finally going to bite them in the butt this year. And then I just have the Blue Jays in last. I don't know what the hell is happening. A lot of players have left. Santander did go there, but I just don't know how he's going to fit in that ballpark. That's going to be interesting to note. The saga with Guerrero Jr., how he wants so much of an extension that he keeps putting up his price. And it's
American
weird.
dollars or Canadian dollars?
No, that's right. So they were saying, I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were going to trade him. They couldn't get a deal done. Now they're talking with him again, going to try to overpay him. But I think he eventually wants out, probably to the Yankees. But I have to put him in last. They just have a team their starters aren't good. Their fans are pissed off because they haven't made the right moves. They want Guerrero Jr. there. They don't want to go back to those Blue Jays that just, over a decade ago that just didn't have any star players or any good players other from Roy Halladay and maybe Vernon Wells, but then he was gone. But it just feels like they're going to take a further step back, the Blue Jays, this season. So, again, I got Baltimore winning the East.
Yeah, I'm with you, James. I was kind of, in a way, I may have said like Yankees earlier in the week, but then Cole gets hurt. Now I'm like, I think Baltimore's got a chance to finally get it done. So I go Baltimore, New York, Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay for my top 5 in the American League East. Let's, James, go to the American League Central, who sent a pair of teams to last season's, or 3 teams last year. The Guardians, Tigers, and Royals all made it, while the Twins missed out by a couple of games. And the White Sox are the White Sox. James, how does the AL Central stack up in your mind in 2025?
I guess let's start at the bottom with the White Sox. I feel so
125 losses.
121. 41 and 121.
125 and 25 is what I'm predicting.
Oh, God. They have 6 pitchers, I think, on the IL too, or with elbow surgeries, so that hinders them even more. I think a couple of them came in that Crochet deal, or at least one of them did, so that hurts them even more. Drew Thorpe,
who they got from the Padres for Dylan Cease. He's got Tommy John.
That was one of the 6, I guess, with injuries. But with Luis Robert, which teams didn't want to trade for, he's just stuck there until they just basically give him away. Other from that, they really don't have anybody that they just got rid of Brandon Drury. They're going really young with their team. They might lose. Yeah, they might go over what they lost last year.
125 losses is what I'm saying.
Awful. Even what they did last year, and they could have got 125.
It's unfathomable about how bad they were.
Yeah, it starts off with me. I feel bad for Will Venable. We knew him, of course, in San Diego as an outfielder, and he went on to win championships with the Rangers as a base coach, I want to say.
Yeah.
No, assistant manager, whatever. But I just feel bad for him because I was watching an interview with him. I think the Foul Territory guys were interviewing him. Somehow they allowed AJ Pierzynski on at Camelback, but they interviewed Will, and the first thing was like, "Hey, how can you do better than last year? What can you do?" And he gave the cliche answers, whatever. But you just know it might be worse than last year. I don't want to say it, but I'll let you say it. All right, so they're going to be last, no doubt about it. I feel like the Twins didn't do much this offseason. and maybe it was because of their RSN deal going down the tube or whatever. But it seems like the last couple of years they really haven't spent. And then you had players that performed well in 23. They didn't perform well in 24. And you're hoping
they're never healthy. Royce Lewis got hurt again.
And then you're worried about Buxton. I don't know if he'll ever play a regular season, full season again. And it just feels like they haven't had a solid catcher since Maurer was moved to first all those years ago.
By the way, James, if the quick math, if the White Sox lose 125 games, they will go 37-125 this season.
Jeez. I don't wish
that. How could it get any worse? There you go.
And they have a great promotional schedule. They have a lot of great giveaways because it's a anniversary year of some sort.
It's the 20th anniversary of their 05 World Series run.
But they have it like throughout the whole history of their team. They have all these different years and giveaways. It's pretty cool. Maybe that's the only thing good.
And also with the Twins, James, a report came out from The Athletic that the Pullett family wants $1.7 billion because the team has racked up about $430 million worth of DEBT, aka debt.
Jeez, no way.
So they're selling to offload the debt to the new owner.
Tell you what, give me some Target stocks in that.
So Target stock, U.S. Bank stock.
Hell yeah. That's the only way to do that. It's just a bad situation. It's a nice ballpark, but...
Beautiful ballpark, absolutely.
Okay, Guardians, I think, will be in third. They made some puzzling moves this offseason. Trading Naylor to Arizona. I didn't like that. Their second baseman, Rosario, they traded him away. Again, they're a team with youth. They did bring Carlos Santana back. Hopefully, he'll play the same song as he did before in Cleveland. Their pitching staff's really good. They re-signed Shane Beebe to a long 5-year extension, so that's good. But maybe their best part of them is their pitching, but not the offense. Maybe it would be a chore for them to score enough to win, especially in a tough division like the Central, which is weird to say. All right. Second will be the Royals. They re-upped on some starters, and I really like what they did. They really helped, offensively, but they got better pitching. Carlos Estevez is not the closer there, so that should be good for him, unless he implodes. I've seen that. But that was like last part of the year. Not first part is really good. But yeah, they have one of the best rotations, I would say. I don't know if one of the best, but one of the underrated rotations in the league. I truly
especially
believe
with Lugo and Waka being there.
Yeah, and then I should know the other one, but so I have the
Cole
Tigers.
Reagans.
Yeah, and they re-signed him to an extension. I have the Tigers in first. I just loved what they did in a way in the offseason where they stayed pat other from bringing back Jack Flaherty. He had to go shine somewhere else, win a ring with LA, come back and just have bring that experience to the young Tigers. They still have that eyesore at shortstop, Javi Baez. But other from that, everybody is growing. Everybody is
Green,
so
Parker
well.
Meadows, you name it.
Their outfield is tremendous. And then it is the last year for Spencer Torkelson to be anything for them. If not, they'll release him. He already lost his first base playing job. A lot of pressure is going to be on him, but they have reinforced.
And they have a really good bona fide ace now in Tarek Skubal.
Tarek Skubal, who is going to be in the running for the Cy Young. He showed out last year, and he got it last year, and maybe he'll get it this year. But you saw what they did in the playoffs and take out the Astros. You just want that to continue. I hope it's the order what it's going to be, but it could flip-flop other from the White Sox. So, yeah, I'm going Detroit in the Central.
Now, I flip-flopped, too. I originally had Cleveland, but I'm going to go Royals as the division winner because, like you said, though, James, the rotation's gotten better. They re-upped Reagans. They re-upped Lugo and Michael Waka. The bullpen gets better with Carlos Estevez, though, but mainly because I like the offense. Again, Sal Perez still going strong, catching here and there, DHing. I love Bobby Witt Jr. They also made that trade though, James, for Jonathan India from the Reds, and they didn't have to cough up Bradley Singer. But India, I think, though, was like on the block the past couple of years. I think a change of scenery will help him out, though. So I'm going to go Royals 1, Tigers 2, because, again, that late run was kind of spurred on by the Parker Meadows grand slam off Robert Suarez in San Diego in early September that kind of catapulted them to make the playoff run. I got to go Cleveland 3rd, though. I think, though, the pitching is always a problem with the Guardians. Jimenez being traded was also a kind of a blow, as was Naylor getting traded. So I think that's why they're going to be in 3rd. Twins 4th, White Sox are the White Sox. They're 5th.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You mentioned with the with the Royals, I forgot the Jonathan India. He's been really hard to gauge with the Reds.
Up, down, injuries, you name it. Yeah.
That's why I didn't really mention him, but I should. You want to go to the West now?
To the American League West, James. Is it going to be Houston? Is it going to be Texas? Or is it just the state of Texas versus everybody in that whole division?
That's how it used to be. Well, in 23, I guess. But I'll go from last to first here because it's territorial for me, of course. Even with the Angels making the moves that they did in the offseason, the day after the World Series, they trade for Jorge Soler. It seems like they made 4 trades with the Braves lately.
And most recently got Ian Anderson for Jose Suarez, I believe.
Thank God. Suarez, I don't think he'll bloom into an all-star, but he was just difficult to watch. Ian Anderson, I know he walks a lot, and he'll just blend in with the rest of the Angels. He'll be a long reliever, possibly. Reed Detmers was a long reliever as well. He was a top 10 pick, of course, and just never was there. They did make some rotation moves, getting rid of Canning and Sandoval. They brought Kyle Kendricks in. They still have Tyler Anderson for 1 year. And all I can hope for Anderson is that because it's a contract year, he'll go off. That's all I can hope for. But
and the opening day starter, Yusei Kikuchi.
And then, that was the other free agent move that I was happy about. Then I realized they're going to pay him $20 million a year. And I'm like,
that doesn't happen very often in Anaheim.
Especially for pitchers, too. It was like C.J. Wilson was the last time somebody got more than, $10 million a year. It feels like that was a multi-year deal. So, I got the Angels in last, even though they made the moves. They didn't really make any more later. Their young outfielders really aren't doing well. They have injury issues with Neto coming off the elbow surgery. Rendon is out right away. First day of spring training, I need hip surgery, I'm out. Makata got hurt last week, so that's going to be bad. It's just going to be a bad year again. I don't know if they'll probably get. I was going
to say, do they lose 99 games again, or do they go over the century mark, or do they lose less than 99 games?
No, they'll probably get like 93. I'm going to say 69 and 93 for the Angels. 4th, I have the homeless Athletics. Well, the
Athletics
in Sacramento.
The Athletics.
I know, I can't see. That's going to be hard. And it's just weird on everybody's schedule. It says ATH.
Athletics.
Stupid. I know, probably as an announcer, you have to.
Athletics or A's.
You have to say Athletics.
Athletics or A's.
Elephants.
Not even
I love what they
the patch is not even on the uniforms this year, my friend.
Oh, that's right. Jeez.
They got that the Tower Bridge in Sacramento.
And come to Las Vegas, patch.
And one for Ricky Henderson for some ungodly reason. I know he passed, but he didn't play in Sacramento. Give me a break.
Right. It's going to be a shock, I think, for everyone playing there.
Along with Tampa Bay playing in minor league ballparks for
that's even worse.
Games. Yeah.
Well, I think it's worse just because they're playing at a rival's site, of course. But the A's did something they never do. They spent money. I think there was
you know why? Because they were going to be kicked out of the revenue sharing pool if they didn't spend money. Because this is how they're going to have to justify the move. Got to spend money.
Yeah, and you have to do it in Vegas even more. They went out and got Luis Severino. They re-upped Rooker and Butler, 2 great great young and upcoming hitters. Well, Rooker's already here, but Butler just showed his force last year. And I think they made some other. They got what was it? I can't remember what else. I'm trying to remember what else they did, but they made another signing too. It was just weird. They just have a young core. Geloff is there,
but he's out disruptively with hamate bone surgery.
That's the only reason I knew who that was or remember who that was. That was one of their core pieces coming up. Jack Wilson's son is there, but for some reason, I think they're gonna take on playing at Sacramento. They're gonna take it on and somehow relish in it. It's weird. I don't know why, but I think they'll be far ahead of the Angels somehow. I really, really do in fourth. Third place, I have the Astros. They lost a lot in the offseason. There's like a CVS receipt list of how many players they lost. I mean, it's all like veterans too when you think about it. It was awful.
Verlander, Bregman, the main two.
Yeah, Kyle Tucker was traded. Paredes was traded to the Cubs. That's the big one for me. I mean, he and Santander are like the two underrated outfitters in the league that I just love, and now they're somewhere else. Alvarez and Altuve will both be playing left field because of all the young players coming up. They do have
Paredes is now playing second base, more than likely.
Oh yeah, Paredes, will be at second. Or no, third. Someone's going to be at Pena's at short. No, they have a battle between someone and someone at second base.
Mauricio Dubon.
Mauricio Dubon will probably get it. Yeah, he's the guy. They did get Christian Walker. I do like that move. It'd be weird to see him outside of the Diamondback uniform. But with what they lost, they're going to lose more games. And it's the price of having Mr. I won't pitch more than an inning in a game. What was his name again?
Josh Hader.
Josh Hader. That contract just screwed up their payroll when you really think about it. It's not going to be pretty in left field. It's going to be either tall left field or short left field, and it's going to
be a great left fielder with Alvarez or the Benny Hill theme songs playing for Altuve in left.
That's going to be the interesting thing. And then their starters. It's a nice rotation. They're young and then you have Valdez and Javier, but then you have a lot of injury-prone starters, and that's going to derail them, I think, to third. Second place, I have the Mariners. I feel like their starting pitching is maybe the rotation's probably the best in the league, just based on numbers and names.
Even with George Kirby being hurt.
Yeah. But they have, another reinforcement there. Castillo's there. The thing is the offense. They did bring Jorge Polanco back to play short or no second. No, short, I think it was. No, I'm sorry, second base because Crawford's at.
They got J.P. Crawford playing short.
There's so much information that I was playing in my head right now. But they have a talented group. Unfortunately, Mitch Haniger was released. He was always injured. They have a nice young core like Cal Raleigh. You throw in J-Rod with Randy Arozarena. I just feel like a whole season with Arozarena and J-Rod, they're going to be explosive enough to get a wild card, in my opinion. All right, so number one would be the Rangers. I feel like they have a revamped rotation. It is young, but it's going to come with growing pains. But hopefully a better and a healthier Jacob deGrom will be there. We'll see. But they made some odd moves in the offseason, but they're going to rely on their youth this year. Nathaniel Lowe was the one move I didn't get what they did. They traded him to Washington. Maybe they had a first baseman waiting, but they just have some young pitchers that I really like seeing. And then their bullpen lost a lot too. It's almost like I'm thinking they're going to be worse. But they had a hungover 24, but hopefully they get back to it with Simeon and Seager and Garcia and their catcher doing well. So I got the Rangers getting back in first place for the AL West.
I'm still going to go with Houston until someone knocks them off the
I know.
pedestal. It's hard to do, and I'm mainly James Shearer sentiments though about pitching with the Rangers. John Gray's already hurt. They lost. Kirby Yates goes to the Dodgers. Like everyone and their mother went to the Dodgers over the course of the offseason. It felt like over the course of the offseason. So I still go with Houston. I know they lost a lot though with Tucker and Bregman, and they're moving Altuve to the outfield, but until they actually don't win a division title, I can't bet against them. So I'm going Houston 1, Texas 2. I got Seattle in third, James. I know that you're looking at them to be a wild card team, but I really think though that the offense has to step it up because I know that the ballpark up there is not hitter friendly, but I feel like that the Mariners, James, lost so many close games last year. It kind of felt like at home mainly because of the ballpark, but also James, why do I feel like though that your boy DePoto is going to do something stupid and wreck the team when it comes to the trade deadline? Like again, I recall best when they were like going to make a playoff run. Oh, but they trade Kendall Graveman to the Astros for 2 pitchers. So I have them in third.
Up the locker room too.
Yeah, so I got the Mariners in third, and I got the wherever they're at, the Athletics, and I got the Angels in last, but not losing 99 games.
How many games did they lose this year, the Angels?
I'll go 90.
Okay, I'll take it. 72
between 90 and 95.
Yeah. Yikes. You want to do 3 wild cards?
We'll hold off on the wild cards, or actually, yeah, James. I mean, so I got Baltimore winning the AL East. Yankees is my first wild card. Royals win the Central.
Same. Oh no.
Tigers and Guardians get in for me, and then the AL West winner gets in for me, and that's Houston.
And is it like the first to 90 for the West wins the West?
Probably.
That's what I'm thinking. All right, for me, I got Yankees in the first wild card. They're eventually going to get into that farm system and make a trade for a
Jason
DH.
Dominguez.
He's been bad in left field from what I heard with in Tampa for the Yankees. But JD Martinez is still out there to be their DH. I'm thinking Jason Dominguez. It's supposed to be one of their best prospects in left field, and he's just been bad. But yeah, JD Martinez will probably be their DH. It'd be weird to see him in the Yankee uniform. Number 2 would be the Royals for me. I think they just have enough pitching. I want them to go out there and make an offensive trade splash. I really do.
Do something.
Yeah. Same thing with the Mariners. Literally the same thing. But I think they just have enough pitching to get that 3rd wild card spot.
To the National League side of things, James, out in the NL East, the Phillies won it all last season. What to say about a revamped Mets lineup with Juan Soto? Can the Braves hold up with their pitching depth? Nationals take a step forward. Marlins keep going back. James, how does the NL East stack up in your mind?
Yeah, last place I definitely have Miami. It's only a time where
matter of time till Alcantara's a Padre or is a Yankee.
That's true. That's exactly what I was going to mention. The Nats, it feels like they're on the upswing, but they still
not quite there yet.
They're trying to get their talent up and making it happen. I just want to see some type of progression like they did last year. Remember, they started out last year pretty decent. All right. I don't believe the Mets hype. I just don't. I know you brought back Pete Alonso. You signed Soto. But it seems like with the Mets, there's always something that holds them back, right? So you saw all their starters are pretty much out, other from Clay Holmes, who they got from the Yankees. That's Manaea,
Peterson,
and then Senga.
Senga, he's still
the other one. So I think that's going to hinder them all year long, to be honest with you. So I got the Mets in 3rd. There's just something about them where they don't show up. I don't know why. All right. So 2nd place, I have the Braves. I feel like they're going to take a step down. I don't know what Profar is going to do for them. I really don't. He's
already got a jacked up wrist.
Yeah, I saw that play, and it reminded me of the Hideki Matsui play back in the day at Old Yankee Stadium, where he turned his wrist like that. But he only played well here, so that's what I'm worried about. He's not going to do the same there. He got paid. He might feel vindicated already. Is Acuna going to come back healthy? Spencer Strider, is he ever going to be the same again after missing a whole year?
Is Chris Sale's back going to flare up on him again like it did at the end of last season?
Yeah, eventually he'll go out. Even though he had a great year last year out of nowhere. There's just so many questions for the Braves, and I can't answer them yet. We'll know in June or July.
We might know after the opening series in San Diego, for all we know.
Hell yeah. All right, so, of course, number one, I got Philadelphia. I just feel like they have the abundance of riches. Not Dodger, but in the East, at least, with the Phillies. You have all the... Yes, their core is getting older, but
I was
it's
just
still
going to bring
good.
that up.
You know, Castellanos, excuse me, is what, 36. You have what was it, Trey Turner and Bryce Harper are both 32. Kyle Schwarber's getting up there. You feel like maybe they're motivated to make one more run together these last couple of years coming up. Boy, that lockout would kill things for them, I think. But they made another... Who did they get from Miami? They got Jesus Luzardo. I think that's going to be huge for them because Ranger Suarez is already out with injury. But they have a great rotation. They signed back Wheeler and Nola before last season started. I remember that was the big deal. If they were going to come back, and they all did. So I feel like they have enough to win the East, the Phillies.
I agree, James, with your order that I feel like, James, to your point, this feels like a make-or-break year for the Phillies, that there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to win the division again and get back to the World Series and win the damn thing. Because I feel like, though, that heads are going to roll, James, if they don't play well. I really feel though, that Rob Thompson will be ousted if they are off to a bad start halfway through the season, or if they get into the postseason and don't make a deep run, though, that they're going to probably show him the door. So I got Philadelphia going 1. I agree about Atlanta. You know, they have a lot of pitching problems, or pitching question marks, I should say. You know, Profar getting hurt. You know, how will Acuna be coming back off of another ripped ACL? Again, I don't buy the Mets hype. I said, James, when Soto signed, okay, this is cool and all, but that lineup doesn't scare me other than Soto and Alonso. I mean, Lindor is getting up there in age as well. He still has pop. You know, Vientos needs time to grow, as does Francisco Alvarez, and I love Brandon Nimmo. But, like, other than that, they're not terrifying. You know, they're not the Dodgers. They're not Philadelphia. So I don't really buy that hype. I think the Nats are still like a year or two away from getting better, and then the Marlins and the Marlins.
And I'm sorry, I'm sorry to talk about the Mets the way I did, even though they made a great run to the NLCS, but that could have been just a one-time thing.
One-time shot, exactly. Yeah, I agree. You know,
the OMG thing.
Yeah, and OMG is now wearing Padre brown and gold. So there you go.
That's right.
James, maybe the worst division in all of baseball, the NL Central. You got the Brewers, Cubs, Reds, Cardinals, and the Buccos. What do you think here?
What was the thing you could do with the hat? You put five papers in a hat. You just pick out one. That's how the NL Central feels like to me.
I still think it's Milwaukee's division to lose.
Let's talk about it real quick. All right. The Cardinals, eventually they're going to trade Arenado to the Astros. The Astros, though, have to put...
Or just for the hell of it to the Dodgers.
Oh, God. No. They do have a better farm system than the Astros. The Astros, I think, are 29th, and the Angels are 30th. Meanwhile, the Dodgers, I think, are second, I believe it is, or third. Anyway, they can make it happen. Just the rumors were saying Houston.
I heard the Dodgers, though, too.
Oh, my God.
And the Angels.
No, there's no way. I wouldn't want it.
We'll trade one bad contract to Anaheim for a bad contract in Rendon. There you go.
Oh, would you imagine those great fans in St. Louis putting up with Rendon's shenanigans? No way.
I think it'd be hysterical.
Oh, that'd be up on more of a scale, I think. But Cardinals, they're so young. I know they have Sonny Gray, but I don't know what the hell they're doing. They have Mason
There's
Wynn.
No sense of direction. Like who would have thought Cardinals, no sense of direction, would ever be the same sentence? Yeah.
No more Cardinal way. I need a map. So I have the Cardinals somehow in last.
I'm the map. I'm the map. I'm the map.
The Pirates in fourth. Skeens is going to bring them up to notoriety, but all they did was pretty much bring back McCutchen and Adam Frazier, I think. And
I even think, James, that Paul Skeens, if the quote is true, kind of in a way, kind of put Pirate ownership on blast about we need more guys.
And maybe they do it at the trade deadline, but they never really did that. They haven't done that. So I got the Pirates in fourth. I got the Reds in third. I believe in Francona, and I know it's a young ass team. They have a great pitching staff. A lot of great starters, starting with Hunter.
I love Ellie De La Cruz.
Ashcraft. De La Cruz, that's short. He's got a missile of an arm, deadly weapon. They have a pretty good outfield. Steers right there. Kind of reminds me of Ryan Frill, but not as fast. Yes. I loved Ryan Frill growing up, watching him play, stealing bases, whatever the case was. But I think they take a step up, but
not quite there yet still.
Yeah, and it's what they were supposed to do in 23, what they were supposed to be better in 24, and they just fell off. Finally, David Bell is gone. That should have been years ago, in my opinion. Agreed. He was more of a fighter than a manager.
Get out of here.
He would fight the umpire, fight the Pirates, the Cubs, whomever. All right, so second place, this is where it gets fun. I have the Brewers. I think that Willy Adames, with him going to the Giants via free agency, that's an odd signing there. But whoever gave the most money. But I think losing him, you lost a good part of that chunk of the offense. And Christian Yelich isn't getting any younger. They did get Brandon Woodruff back, but I don't know how he's going to be off of the injury. And they lost a whole year. A lot will be put on the young Jackson Chourio. I almost said chorizo, but I'm thinking of breakfast at almost 1 a.m. Jackson, man, they're putting a lot on him this year. I mean, he showed
probably because he signed that long-term extension before he even played his first game in the pros last year.
The pressure being put on these guys for that, like Corbin Carroll, the same thing. And you saw how his sophomore slump went last year. Maybe that happens with Chourio there, but I wish him nothing but the best. He's going to have to carry that offense in that lineup. Contreras is really good behind the plate, but it seems like they lost eventually a lot over the years. Like Burns is gone. And okay, so I do have the Cubs at number 1. This was a division I was just like, again, I was picking out of hats for the first
Pretty much, that's what I did too.
I had the David Stern, cold letter or envelope where it had to be the Cubs or the Brewers, not the Cards or the Pirates or the Reds. But I think getting Kyle Tucker's huge, and even though they made that trade for a rental, he's going to go all out. He's going to help them get there. It's going to be like the first to 90 wins that division, I believe. Cubs, making the pitching. The pitching staff is really good. Still is great, but their bullpen is young, but they're solid. They have a really good infield of players. Pete Carroll Armstrong is really good.
Pete Crow Armstrong.
His mother was in Rookie of the Year, and I love that story.
I loved it how you merged your NFL team's head coach with Pete Crow Armstrong by saying Pete Carroll Armstrong.
There's so much going on, and it's only March. Some reason I see the Cubs winning that. Maybe I want to see him make some moves. I know the owner was complaining along with the Rockies one, saying the Dodgers are spending too much. The Dodgers are spending too much. But I want the Cubs to go out and make some trades. I want them to, be legit this year. Like the Cubs, the fans, they deserve a run at Wrigley. They deserve something. They've been through hell and back.
Yeah, they won a World Series 9 years ago. What are you talking about?
I know, but that was 9 years ago, and they haven't.
They still got one more than the Padres do.
Yeah. But it's Wrigley Field. It's like you want them in contention at Wrigley Field. It's just something. If the Cubs are in it,
Chicago baseball fans something to root for.
And the White Sox, you don't want to see them either.
125 losses.
I think. By the way, it's people are having a hard time either finding or buying the new Chicago sports network. Like a lot of people aren't tuning into the Blackhawks, the Bulls, and the White Sox. So a lot of people are going to be tuning in to Marquee Network and the Cubs this year. So, yeah, I'm going all Cubs.
I still got Milwaukee, like the Astros. I mean, until someone knocks them off the pedestal, I can't bet against them. Now, yes, losing Adames really does hurt, though. That Churio becomes the main guy, and it's kind of him and a bunch of role players. It feels like, though,
Yep.
maybe Pat Murphy winning manager leader was a fluke last season for Milwaukee. But I got Chicago going second, probably one of my wild card teams this year. Reds, I agree, James, take a step up, but I'm going to flip flop with go Redbirds and then the Bucks in that division, fourth and fifth.
Okay. That's just. Again, I want the Cardinals to go back to who they were, but that's going to take a lot of years.
They are who we thought they were.
And they're really off the hook, but not in the good way, the bad way. All right.
And then, James, to probably the most competitive division in all of Major League Baseball, the National League West Division, of course, the Dodgers, World Series champs, reloading with everybody you can think of, and then some like it's the Monstars and Space Jam 1 in 1997.
Hit him high, hit him low,
Intriguing team in Arizona, what the Padres have been going through. The Giants now with Buster Posey, and Dick Monfort just needs to shut up and sell the team and quit owning the Rockies. James, LA versus everybody, go for it.
Yeah, definitely Los Angeles in first place. I mean, the plethora of moves they've made and the re-signings and the hirings.
The Los Angeles deferrals.
They have God and Jesus both on the Dodgers this season, so check out for that. And the beers are $30 from what I heard.
Right, did you see that? Yeah, I saw that.
Enjoy that. The price of Ohtani. All right, second place, what it comes down to is the pitching moves they made, getting maybe younger at first base with Naylor. I have the Diamondbacks in second. Getting Corbin Burns and having Montgomery just in case as the fifth starter or coming out of the bullpen, I think it is. But they have a plethora of guys in that rotation. It's just going to be amazing. They're just like the Royals in a way where they have a really underrated staff, but I think it's at least top five in my opinion. You know, Gallen, P. Fat, he added in Burns too, and that was just a shocker that he went there. That was almost like in '99 when Randy Johnson went to the Diamondbacks. That was just as shocking right there. The best pitcher in the game for agency goes to Arizona again, 25 years later. And their offense is still pretty good. They kept a lot of the offensive players, other from Christian Walker, knew they couldn't re-sign him. The Padres are in third. I think you know why, but I'll let you explain it all with the Padres. It's just coming down to pitching injuries, the offense, who's in left field, who's at first base, who's going to be the fifth starter, what's a bullpen going to be like, can they score enough to win every game because they're going to be giving up a lot of runs. It's just going to be that for San Diego. I have the Giants in fourth, even though they make the odd signings of Adames and Justin Verlander?
What?
Where did that come from? Oh, I was taken back by that. I thought, okay, Orange. Okay, he's going back to Detroit, right, to finish his career? No,
San Francisco.
A lot of the moves I don't get. They have, it seems like they have a lot of young players that have been failures or busts. And they're really trying to get him to go. Like, Yastrzemski's okay. Wade Jr.'s, he's always benched back and forth. I'm hoping Buster Posey can turn that program around, but it's going to take some years. But the Giants, I know they have Logan Webb. I know he's really good too, but they just have a weird mixture of players right now. And I just don't know the direction that they're going. It almost feels like a Band-Aid was put on for Willie Adames going to the Giants. Colorado, okay, they have a lot of young and fun outfield talent. You have some talent in the infield. But other from Chris Bryant, not a lot of people make money. No pitchers want to go there, of course. And like you mentioned with the owner crying wolf, it just made that situation worse. It was once a really strong franchise, and it's turned into the opposite of that. I just don't know. Maybe they'll trade Dinger this year for all I know. But Colorado's in last, no doubt.
Trade the mascot. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I sadly got to pick the Dodgers. I mean, they all the resources, being smart financially with the deferred money, with what they've done. And also, by the way, prayers out again to Mookie Betts. I heard it got a little bit worse with his illness. Now, again, Mook got sick on the flight over to Japan. I think even before the team left Camelback Ranch to go to Tokyo for the 2 games, Mookie had dropped 15 pounds of weight. And he was told to fly back to LA with a team trainer, and I guess he lost 5 more pounds over the course of the past couple days. He's been really unable to keep food down, from what I've been hearing from sources, and just a lot of general fatigue. So really hoping the best for Mookie Betts going forward. And again, the Dodgers have plenty of depth though to fill his void right now. I will say though, James, that the Dodgers, their success will hinge again on pitching. That Michael Grove is done for the year. I think Bobby Miller has also been kind of beat up again with some injuries. You worry about Tyler Glass now. And of course, Blake Snell, James, doesn't show up till the second half of the season. So you can have a 7.50 ERA in the first half of the year. Then he finally turns it on, though. I'm eager to see how Yamamoto does year 2. Of course, Sasaki year 1. And again, the lineup is a damn juggernaut. Like, you're going to have to, play basically a perfect game to get those guys out. So again, LA number 1. I agree though about Arizona being 2. Again, you make that move for Josh Naylor to come from Cleveland to replace Christian Walker. Zach Gallen being in a walk year this season is kind of interesting with him. Then of course you've got Corbin Burns as your 2 guy. What will they do with Jordan Montgomery going forward though as the 3? The bullpen will be pretty interesting, James. Will it be AJ Puck who closes? Will it be my former teammate Kevin Ginkel who closes? Or will it be Justin Martinez who closes? That'll be a pretty interesting thing to see and watch happen. I agree about Corbin Carroll having to kind of probably have a bounce-back season. Their lineup, though, is still great, though, with him and Marte if he's healthy. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. There's still a very potent lineup there, and I know that their ballpark is a little bit wonky, too, in Phoenix. Padres are 3rd, in my opinion, though, because of James, the off-season drama. Again, the family of Peter Seidler kind of, barking at each other. Peter's widow filing a lawsuit for control of the team, but that, of course, went to John Seidler, who took over as the new control person. That was a very much a sideshow circus that, of course, really, James, hindered the Padres to be their usual aggressive selves over the offseason. I think that also, in a way, killed them to getting Roki Sasaki with, the ownership situation going on. And also his history, though, with Ohtani and Yamamoto with Team Japan, though, in the 2023 WBC. But I still think, James, that despite all the question marks, that this Padres team is still going to win like 85 or 90 ball games this season, though, because, again, they got talent here. They got, for Tatis and Merrill, Cronenworth and Machado. I know that the catcher spot is a black hole right now. Left hole is a gaping hole. First base is kind of in also a hole, as is the rotation in the bullpen, though. I still believe in this team, though, man, to go and make some kind of run, though. Giants are 4th, and again, the Rockies are the Rockies.
Yeah, I agree with you on all of that. I just can't see anyone being the Dodgers, and then, man, I just hope the Padres win more than what is projected. But they're really stuck on what they can spend and what they can't spend. It seems like it's just really
and
bad.
Even, James, if they don't make the postseason, but if they do finish what they're projected to be of 82 and 80, that would still be, James, the 3rd straight winning season for the Padres dating back to 2022. Like that doesn't happen every day when they have consecutive winning seasons of more than 1 or 2 years.
2021, how many games did they win?
They were 75 and 83, I believe, when they had that late year collapse.
I'm not hoping for that this year, but maybe the worst case scenario you see that happening if injuries happen, especially if more.
And that's
happen.
where I think that they would just kind of hit the eject button and trade Cease, King, and Arise to get Major League talent and get prospects or draft picks.
And I hope people would understand that. The wild card.
I do. I kind of have already accepted that fate. That if that happens, then yes. I mean, it will suck, but if it gets us back some top tier talent that's ready to go for the major league level, on top of being, ready to go for the, with minors, absolutely. My wild card teams, by the way, Atlanta, Arizona, San Diego.
That's what I have. All right.
Great minds think alike. All right, James, time to go off the board, my friend, for the this late night. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here, believe it or not, because we had a bit of a late start for tech problems and James having to shut down shop at work. James, off the board, my friend. We get to talk about one or two topics that was not talked about on the show. What do you got for us?
Yeah, no, mine was that one of the NIL transfers, I guess just in college basketball, where, again, you would do, you can transfer after your freshman year, but you can't transfer in your senior year. That's all I had. You do yours because I can't really think of one right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine, James. My off the board topic, James, of course, this happened last Tuesday before the tournament officially began for March Madness. But that, of course, James, marked the final broadcast ever for one of my earliest broadcasting idols and heroes, the one and only Ted Leitner. 46 years of calling Padre baseball, SDSU football and basketball, and even Charger football. Ted citing ongoing health problems with glaucoma. And his age, though, he finally called it quits. So at age 78 last Tuesday, following SDSU getting clobbered by UNC in the first four for men's college basketball. Again, James, you probably saw on the on Lee Hacksaw's or Lee Hacksaw Hamilton's show on Monday that I had written in about, saluting Uncle Teddy for 46 years. And, I remember, James, when I had gotten word that, Ted was going to retire, though, and obviously the last game, though, it brought back a lot of nostalgia for me again as a young kid growing up here, born and raised in San Diego back in the mid to late 90s, and Ted was a part of my young sports fan life, calling Padre games on 760 AM or on Channel 8 when he did sports as the sports anchor for CBS 8 here in San Diego. And that Ted meant so much to me. Like, I remember sharing the story on my IG post that whenever Ted came on the air at 5 or 6, I would stop what I was doing and sit, on the living room floor and just watch and be enamored by this guy give the sports updates, and remember, like, kind of in a way, putting up a TV and telling my parents in that way, oh my God, that's what I want to do when I get older. And I remember, though, James, too, that one of my favorite stories, and I have two of them. I know we're already past, our 2.5 hour limit here, basically going on 3 hours. But two of my favorite stories, James, came when I was older, and I got a chance to actually meet Ted a couple of times at Qualcomm Stadium, which is now where Snapdragon Stadium is for the Wave and SDFC and for the for SDSU football. But I remember I was helping Brian Main, who was one of my other idols in PA, as a spotter. So I would go to games and I would just wear a pair of binoculars and tell Brian that tackle on the play by 56 Gonzales for Air Force, basically. That was my job, was to tell him who got the tackle on defense for the game so he can make that announcement to the public at the games on the PA. So I got to a game early, and I went into the SDSU radio booth to drop off some notes to Chris Sello, Kirk Morrison, and to Ted. And Chris and Kirk had left the booth. So when I got there, and I remember walking down the stairs, because it was a, 2-level miniature, 2 staircases down to where they sat in the booth. And I said, Mr. Leitner, here's some extra notes if you need them. And then I asked him, do you mind if I sit here for a bit? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Come and sit down. And he was in the middle, James, of his game prep, laying out his boards, reading the media notes, jotting down notes. And I remember just like peppering him with, I remember, sir, watching you when I was a kid. I'm now a up and coming announcer in, here locally with colleges and with, minor league hockey and stuff of that caliber. And, I remember listening to you with the Padres run in 98 to the World Series, and, remembering you going crazy when Caminetti had a big base hit to put the Padres ahead in Game 3 of the DS against the Braves. And, just, a lot of like the fanboy stuff, James. And I wasn't really proud of it now that I look back on it, though. But, Ted would just sit there and like, chuckle and say, oh, man, that was such a great, game of, we beat the Braves going up 3-0, like hearing that perspective and stuff. And then, he even said, I know that you're an up and coming broadcaster. If you ever need anything, man, here's my email. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But I got, though, James, to sit next to him, though, and just watch him go about his business. This is, writing down, pronunciations, taping the game board down to the, to the table, at Qualcomm, and seeing him, jot down some notes that, I think he said, though, if I don't remember someone's name in 5 seconds, if I don't write it down, I lose it. And then, seeing him go about, highlighting stuff, and then just, the game preparation. Like, this is like 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours before kickoff that he's going there and going through everything again. Then again, he's talking to Kirk or Chris about, stuff going on, with the broadcast. But again, I got to sit, though, James, in the booth at Qualcomm next to a guy that I idolized growing up that made me want to become part of the traveling zoo that is sports media and sports announcing. And you can't put a price on that. And then years later, James, I think my first year at USD, my second year at USD, State came and played USD at the Slim Gym at the Jenny Craig Pavilion for men's basketball. And I came to the game. I wasn't working, but I came to the game to watch because I knew that Ted was going to be there. So I already had known John Schaefer, who now will take over for Ted on 760 for football and men's hoops, because he had worked with me at PLNU for soccer a couple of times. And so I came to the game just to see Ted. And I remember that after the game and after Ted wrapped up his portion, because then Schaefer took over for the post game, that during a commercial break that I went over to the table and I reintroduced myself. And Ted somehow, some way, James said, "You were the kid I met at Qualcomm like 5 years ago. Like, how you doing, man?" And I said, "Mr. Leitner, I'm working here now as a PA guy here. I do some play-by-play occasionally. And, I kind of, took a bit of your style of like, incorporating like my personal experiences, though, with the sport in general when it was baseball, whatever. And I do that too at Point Loma Nazarene." And James, Ted Leitner remembered who the hell I was, man. Like, I'm just an average, Joe, Joe Schmo, Joe Schmuck. Like, I was like 27 or 28 at the time when I got to meet Ted again. And I had that picture that I posted out, though. But I'm like, Ted Leitner remembered me. I'm a no value added, bottom feeder in San Diego sports announcing. Yet this guy who, again, I idolize, who was doing Padre games on the radio and on TV and did sports the way that I thought it should be done, though, about being bold, honest, and being passionate about talking sports, how he would do his sports updates. James, he didn't have no script. He didn't, he wasn't reading like this. I may jot down notes, but again, I'm right here just giving thoughts and, spewing crap out of my brain to give to the audience out there here or on Press Box 1100, though. But like, I modeled my sports talk background based off of guys like Ted Leitner and Hacksaw and Coach John Quintero, like I wrote into the program on Monday. And, I know that the old saying is, "Oh, don't meet your heroes," blah, 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 blah. James, I got to meet Ted. I got to meet Dick Enberg. I got to meet, Coach John Quintero numerous times, though. Without those four gentlemen, James, I'm not where I am today, and it all, James, began from Ted being brutally bold, brutally honest, and brutally passionate about, James, can you believe how bad these Clippers are playing, man? Like how stupid and how pathetic that these guys are. Oh my, the Chargers are going to Seattle this weekend. Why are we going to Seattle? I mean, how much, is the jet fuel? Like $35,000? I mean, this is ridiculous. George Foreman knocks out the great Tony Flawungi for his, 8th straight knockout. Whatever. Do we have time for the hockey highlights? Let's just show the Quebec versus Boston game and show these guys beating the tar of each other. Oh, you want auto racing? Here's, let's look at some cars on the 805 in rush hour traffic. Like, I just absolutely fell in love with it. Now, of course, James, there's the old line: either you hated Ted Leitner or you are Ted Leitner, and very much so, James. You can talk to my parents about this. My parents hated when Ted came here from Philadelphia because no one in this market, James, was again, bold, honest, or even, passionate to criticize the Padres and put down the Clippers. But Chargers lost to the freaking Seahawks in Seattle. Like, are you kidding me? No one ever had done that in this market, James. It was very different. And of course, Ted told the stories. People would keep calling the station. I hate this guy. I don't like how he talks about the Padres and the Chargers and the Aztecs and how he talks down about hockey. I hate this guy, but yet though they're all watching. And of course, there's the famous story though that the news producer John Holtzman would tell him, "Hey Ted, get out there and piss him off tonight." So I mean, I had to share those stories, James, because again, without Uncle Teddy, without Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, Coach John Quintero, and Dick Enberg, yours truly, James, would have had no purpose in his life. I don't know what I would have been doing without the influences of Ted, being around Hacksaw a couple of times, knowing Coach Quintero for so long in my time, as a young kid, listening to him on 1090 in the late night windows, to working with Coach Quintero when he was the Sockers GM for about 5 to 7 years of my career. And of course, meeting Dick Enberg at the 2016 Baseball All-Star Game. That's where I will probably go, James, for off the board tonight, about saluting the voice, not Callan McClurg, not John DeMott, Ted Leitner, the official voice of San Diego sports after 46 years of service to our great city with the Padres, the Clippers, the Chargers, and of course, James, SDSU football and men's hoops.
Yeah, I had to take a listen to that. And, I moved here in 2005. I moved away from everybody I grew up watching on all the LA stations.
Chick, Bob Miller.
Yeah. And when it came to news reports, sports reporters, and all that, I had a plethora of people in Los Angeles. Jim Hill, Fred Rogan.
Fred Rogan.
I didn't like Steve Hartman. Horton, Darren Horton from Channel 9 up there in LA, KCAL. Rick Garcia for a long time on 13 and 11. Did I miss? Oh, Channel 5, of course. Stu Nahan at first. And then, I can't. Oh, Rob Fukuzaki, of course, with Channel 7. So those were my voices. And I was so worried that I didn't know anybody here in San Diego. But it was funny. One of the first voices, and I didn't even know who he was Ted Leitner. And this was, I remember like in my room listening to the Padres versus Dodgers here at Petco on 1090. And he was mentioning, it's like I think there's one more outlet for the Padres to get in 05 to beat the Dodgers on a Sunday afternoon. And all of a sudden, everybody kind of stops and he's describing what's going on between a Padre and a Dodger fan in the crowd. And he's like, man, they're ruining it for everybody. I've seen this so many years between like Raider fans and Charger fans. And just the way he described it, I've never heard that before in sports, other from maybe, Howard Cosell or somebody's, commentary, right? That they would have, well, that was a thing back in the day. But never heard criticism before of like anybody until I didn't think I would realize it until Ted Leitner. And then, thank God someone on YouTube uploaded those old, news videos of him and any segments he's done on Throwback Channel 8 CBS. I love those. I relish in those. And he would have been the guy for me too. Now, at first, I don't think I would have liked him just because, he just seems like a what. But then you get older and you feel that way about someone or something, and you kind of relate to him. So I think that's why I liked him. I know he was always, witty with his words, and that kind of threw off people. But luckily, whenever those, Fox Sports San Diego videos came out of how Ted grew up, how you see them all, of course, on YouTube. But I remember watching those right away when they popped up. His upbringing in New York, how he went to college, I think, in Oklahoma, but his accent would come, New York accent, and he would name all these
Arkansas.
States. Yeah. And how he got his baritone from Marty Glickman at the Madison Square Garden. That story, like you mentioned, with the producer, hey, Ted, go piss him off today. And then how at the end of it, he's like, Ted, I think you did a great job. It's like, don't tell me that because it's a contract year.
My contract runs out in a year.
Yeah, I love that. I'll go back and watch him, but I really got to really understand him doing Padre games. And it was the first time I ever heard somebody have stories other from Vince Scully during the baseball games. Like, he would go into anything, really. I remember when the Padres were in Mexico playing the Astros in 2018 or 17, something like that. And he was talking about the relationship America had with Mexico and how a certain president have ruined it. There were little things like that. growing up in New York. And then the best thing with Tony Gwynn Jr. when he was doing games with him is that Ted always has Gwynn Sr.'s laugh on his phone. He still has it, the voicemail. And then I still remember that I was listening to a random game they were doing, and Leitner's there, and he mentions something, and it makes Gwynn Jr. laugh. And he says, "Man, you laugh just like your father. Keep doing it." And I was kind of teary-eyed about that too, like I am now, just because, because of his dad dying. And
for sure,
man, it's again all these voices that are leaving, and that's another one. But that was local here. Again, I wish I was here in the 80s and 90s to really, I would tune in, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever the case was. The Garvey home run, how he's driving back from the stadium when it happened. He wasn't there at the stadium, I think. There's just so many stories I've heard either from you or from videos, from YouTube, from people. I want to know more. And I want to get that TED Talks book. I think that was clever.
Same.
I got to get that on Amazon or wherever I could find it. Maybe I haven't been to Barnes & Noble in forever, but maybe it's there. But yeah, I would listen to some Aztec games this year at work, and just because it's Ted there. And I'm even emotional. It's not even like the city I grew up in, but there's no one like that anymore. And then I would watch anything he did, definitely. But I was gonna do predictions just based on award winners, but we could do that another time. Yeah, Ted, man, all the stories I've heard too from Jerry Coleman, how he talked about him, how he didn't want any of the credit, and he talked about the story where Jerry gets shot down or whatever, and he survives it in the war in Korea in the 50s. All the Tony Gwynn stories, the one with the remembrance with the oh god, something the players did with the cheeseburger, and Tony kept laughing through that. Oh god, there's just so many. You could just tell I'm like trying to remember them all, but he will be missed in this city on the radio and on TV. And then I gotta say this too, because literally, if it wasn't for me, I think watching the interview with John Riley that Ted had, it was like broken up in like
different segments,
12 segments or whatever it was. And then I found out, oh, there's a whole damn video right there. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have known who John Riley was, and I wouldn't have listened to Hacksaw's show. So it's just funny how those two just are all these three things combined. And then, yeah, credit to you for like going up and meeting your hero not once, but twice like that, and remembering who you were after 5 years. I think you said that's something right there. I remember meeting Jim Hill, but it wasn't like it was just a random thing at an Angel game in 21. But I really haven't met anybody I liked or whatever. That's just amazing that you're in that field and you're able to do that. And, again, I wish you nothing but the most success ever. Yeah, I want to find more about Ted for sure. I do. That's all I got.
James. And I think in that video, though, that Ted talked about like meeting people and like all the memories that he has of like meeting people in the field, and that's kind of like myself, though, like literally. I never would have envisioned I would have gotten to work with Shannon McMillan, who again is a 1999 Women's World Cup champ and, was one of my earliest soccer heroes of all time. And I got to work with her on numerous occasions, like I said, with the Soccers and Loyal and with the Wave for about a year or two before I end up just becoming a fan and, not being a freelance writer. But like, making those connections, making those relationships and stuff like that. And that's all through the business of being in the field. And all the colleagues of mine who still work at 97.3 or at 760 or are in local television and things of that caliber, though. And, I think, James, the other one that doesn't get talked about a lot because it was like a more infamous one. SDSU basketball was playing in the conference tournament final, and they ended up losing. And a security guard interrupted Ted's broadcast in the dying seconds of the game because his suitcase was blocking the walkway. You can hear Ted take his headset off and yell at the security guard, and then come back on the air and say, "Calling a game here, and they're worrying about a damn suitcase in the aisleway. The foul in one is on the play." Stupid, I tell you. Idiots. Worrying about a damn suitcase while in the middle of a broadcast. And I'm just like, only Ted Leitner could pull something off like that. It was hysterical.
Tell you what, if you have any more stories while we're out somewhere, I'm all ears, of course. Man, I don't even know why I'm like this, but it's like going from all those voices I had.
No, I totally get it. I get it, man.
I'm like, and then you don't have that, but hopefully, like, he'll be on podcasts or something, and something will come out there. You know, one of those throwback videos I saw, Larry Hamill, who was big here in San Diego, of course.
Yes.
He was at a bar or something like that. And just, I think years ago, I saw this. And on this little TV in this bar, it had Ted Leitner and Stu Lance together doing a Clipper Road game wherever.
Probably in LA or in Phoenix.
Channel 8. Yeah, I think it was Boston, because I saw the parquet floor underneath him. I think so. I like looking at backgrounds and trying to figure it out. But putting Stu and Ted there, and knowing that I think Ralph Lawler did games with Ted Leitner here and there with the San Diego Clippers too. It's like it's all coming together for me when I seen these images or whatever. My friend sent me actually a Clipper media guide, I think, from 82, 83, whatever it was. And it had, Ralph, it had Ted, and whomever else on the bottom. I was like, damn, those two of my favorite voices, out of many, or a select few, I should say, but two of those literally work for the same team on the same radio station for those games. And I'm just like, that's unbelievable. I was never around for it, of course.
No, I don't think it's as good, James, as a clip that I found of Ted volunteering to let fans pie him in the face at a game at halftime. And Stu got in on the fun, too. And Ted's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, I've seen that a couple months ago.
That sweet looking like gold turtleneck on too and everything. And then Channel 8 reporter asked him, so Ted, how'd you feel about that? This is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I remember seeing that, I think last month or 2 months ago. It was finally a video with Ted in it, or anything Clipper related or sports related. And I love that throwback 8, but
yeah, but I think one of my other favorite rants that was on YouTube was the Padres traded Keith Moreland and Chris Brown to the Tigers for Walt Terrell, who was a pitcher for them. And, Ted's like, I got, unseen footage of a Chris Brown homer, a Chris Brown base hit, and there's Chris with all that zest for the game, and a rare video of Keith Moreland hitting a home run and a base hit, and so on and so forth. And then I forgot what else he said, though, and then he's like, Chris Brown, I've been doing this for 20 years, covering all ranks of sports, amateur and professional. I've never seen anybody with less desire, zest to play than Chris Brown. I'm just like, again, who does that? And again, like I said, though, James, is that blunt honest about how about how the team is playing. That I think was probably like a year or two after the Padres were in the World Series in '84.
The one thing I remember he said about Moreland, he's like, he can't even get it to the track.
He can't get to the warning track.
Yeah. And then the thing about the Chargers going to Seattle, a big waste of jet fuel. Why?
Big waste of jet fuel.
And then the video,
$35,000.
Yeah, the video being played, and at the end of it, when they come back to him, it's like, I was gonna put like somewhere over the rainbow,
over it.
I didn't want to be.
I didn't want to do that.
I just love that, man.
Big heavyweight fight last night in Texas. The great comeback tour for George Foreman. George has lost a lot of weight, though. He's looking good, though. Here he is pounding the badungi out of the great Tony Fluwangi. This is George's 10th straight knockout. and on the comeback trail. Whatever.
Man, I just wish I was here for all of that. I'm gonna watch some videos, probably go to sleep, but let's get out of here. I was gonna do those predictions, but nothing beats the
I think nothing beats Callan sharing stories for Off the Board in a near 3-hour show on this now Tuesday morning as I near my 2 a.m. bedtime call. With that in mind, though, James, any final thoughts to pass along for the night's program? What do you got?
Well, on Halos in the Infield, the group that covers the Angels, sadly. I'm sorry. I will have the Around the League show for these predictions that you didn't hear earlier. Just go and listen to those predictions, the same ones, of course. Gonna do predictions, probably some injury news, some late spring training news, of course. We'll go through the what was it called? The opening day starters. I know Snell is now in for LA instead of Yamamoto, and then McClanahan's out, so I got to figure out who will be the starter there for Tampa Bay.
Sale and King on Thursday at Petco.
Oh, I can't. That's a good matchup. I'm gonna rush home for that after work for sure.
1:10 game time.
Hell yeah. I get off at 1, so that's going to be fun. Shout out to baseball coming back, and it's going to be great hearing, Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. on the radio here. Of course, Terry Smith and Mark Langston up in Anaheim. I almost said LA for the Angels.
How dare you?
That wouldn't it be good? So I can't wait to have the voices of summer back in the spring. We need it. The weather's
and also great. Don Orsillo and Mark Grant back on Padres.tv.
When I get back at home and be able to watch, I'll flip them on, of course. The whole Padre broadcast crew, they're awesome, and I'm just lucky to be here to listen and watch them. So baseball is back. I can't wait for that, even though my team's gonna. But I'm going to enjoy it because, again, we have the looming lockout that may happen in 26 and 20 or 27. So I'm going to enjoy this year for all the stories, all the young players, and all the young teams that will maybe make a surprise run. And, I'm going to shake off the March Madness we saw and try to get a couple more days of rest of that and then get back into it right on Thursday. So all I hear is basketball's bouncing. So I'm
basketball. Give me the ball because I'm gonna dunk it.
I'm gonna try to go to sleep and not think about balls bouncing. Basketball
or pigs crying wee 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 all the way home.
I love that commercial. I don't know.
I do too. Final thoughts for me, folks. Again, thanks for hanging out for the last almost 3 hours. This is easily the longest show now in C2C at Night history. Big thanks to Christy Wilson for joining us, and we believe Gabe Jackson, but again, that might be fraudulent, sadly. Once again, folks, as a reminder, again, the program alert that we want to issue again, we're working on this still, but again, James and I are working on a live C2C watch along of the men's college basketball final game. More details will come as we get closer to, I believe, April 7th when the game will be played from the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. We'll have more about that as more time goes on. What was that, James?
Nice. I missed the Spurs at the Alamo Dome.
Go Spurs, go! But yes, we'll have another watch along, folks, of the game involving the two combatants for the men's basketball national title right here on C2C. But again, we'll have more information about that as time does go on. We'll have a live watch along, and then we'll have Coast to Coast at Night to recap the game, and we'll go from there. More importantly, though, folks, again, a major thank you to all of you who joined us here. We're gonna get out of here before the 3-hour mark does hit. But again, for James Gonzales and for yours truly, Callan McClurg, we will be back with you folks, though, probably next week. I got a busy work schedule starting up shop on Wednesday. We'll come back at you folks next week on probably Tuesday, April 1st. Again, I'm going to be all over the place the next couple of days for work. We'll see you folks back here again, though, in the next couple of days back here on C2C. Till next time, folks, have a great night or a great day. Till next time, bye-bye.